The Best Damn League Show period is brought to you by eSportsBet, the industry's leading crypto odds matrix. Use our referral link in the description box below for a first-time deposit bonus of 50% on up to $200 or take advantage of their new alternate first deposit bonus where you can get up to 100 USDT forgiven if you lose the first bet. Just message the mod mail on Discord and tell them Insight on Esports or IOE sent you, and they'll give you up to 100 USDT back if indeed you lose. Could be some cheeky ones you want to bet on at Worlds or something, right? Now let's get into the show. This is going to be a bizarre episode of the Best Damn League Show period because the name is fine. It can be the Best Damn League Show period, but obviously we normally do that and then we're sort of flexing on LCS that we're talking about LEC. Like, this is an LEC talk show, even though I will say it, the last episode did begin with just like 10 minutes on the LCS's chances at Worlds because, you know what, we can also just talk about it, won't, can't we? Like, spoiler, at some point I probably make like a 10-minute basketball analogy or something. It doesn't really have anything to do with LEC, does it? So what we're going to do is basically, just like when we had the Crackdown, technically the Crackdown was you bring a guest on, you interview him, or you have like a top. Well, actually, if you remember, we did a couple of episodes. We actually did a Bjergsen one, which was like...
we did a Froggen one.
Oh, Froggen one, that's right. We did a Froggen debate. No, we did sort of like a mini Bjergsen one at one point.
Oh,
though.
yeah.
It was in the Sven episode, am I right?
It was in the Wonder episode.
Wonder, that was it, yes.
He was just sitting there for like an hour and we were just debating like if Bjergsen was actually good or not.
Do you know what I love about that, by the way? You know when the fans all go like, this is so disrespectful to him. It's like, it's not. By the way, if he'd have actually told us like, this is boring, he could have left at any time and would have kept going. And B, he obviously just didn't have any takes on that. Like, spoiler, I doubt he watched all LCS super closely. I bet he just knows Bjergsen a bit, knows him Worlds, knows the script. So I just don't think he had any points, guys. Like, spoiler, if he'd have jumped in with great points, he could have said anything. We didn't let him have the space course.
I mean, it's also that, like, after a lot of those episodes, people actually, like, sometimes the guest actually finds it interesting to listen to us talk, and they'll message us afterwards and be like, wow, that was actually like pretty interesting. Like, that was pretty entertaining. I like that conversation. So it's not like just if they're not talking, it's like, damn, they must be fucking bored out of their mind or something.
No, absolutely. So what we wanted to do for this one was, obviously, I'll set the whole thing up. They've done the LCS 10-year celebration. By the way, props. Me and Monty wondered, since other regions had done theirs, would the LCS mess it up and not do it? No, they did. They did a full thing. They even brought players out to the finals. I think it was all pretty good. They tried to do this approach, which I would say the theme and the way that it was executed didn't surprise me at all. It's entirely in keeping with how LoL Esports has done everything forever. It's an alternate dimension where all sorts of crazy stuff appears on that website. It doesn't appear on that website. Storylines do get covered, don't. And so as a result, there is a world apparently where Jensen's like not even top 3 ever in the region and stuff. So it's like, okay, if you say so. So there's all that jazz, right? So basically, one of the reasons I also say it's very much in the LoL Esports warehouse, if people don't know, what essentially people like Theon have done at sites after that, like ESPN and Upcomer, is just the LoL Esports approach. Because if you know, I actually know the guys who were the editors of LoL Esports. And essentially, Dom, all the things they made that were lists and power rankings, they intentionally knew would cause drama and would just cause discussions. That was what they wanted. They wanted it to be like water cooler material. And even one of the guys, I won't name him now because fuck him, this guy actually used to actively say it. Like, he even put some sort of troll ones out there every now and then just because he knew, like, whoa, this will be spicy. Imagine them seeing this. Like, but I have to say, you can imagine, my life has been esports history. I find that really gross, mate. It's like, that's like, if you want to make it WWE, make it clear that you're sort of being edgy or you're being silly or you're the Inquirer or something. If you want to be LOL esports and talk about the greatest, you got to get it right. And so, for example, as an aside, obviously one area they messed up is the theory sounds great. Get the greatest players themselves to vote. The problem being, people like Dyrus obviously haven't watched the game. Now, listen, that's not Dyrus's fault, by the way. If you say to Dyrus, do you want to, as one of the greatest players ever, do you want to vote on these things? And he says, yeah, sure. You're the one who messed up. In that scenario, you have to ask him stuff like, have you actually watched past like season 6, mate? Like, what did you care about? You know, could you even name, for example, who was on this? If you can't pass basic qualifications, I would say it's on LoL Esports or whoever set it up to basically make the panel really good. And the problem they have is they just made the panel really good names. And so I think there were a lot of areas where, look, it's fine for the birds, for people who just want the general overview, like, these were pretty good players. And if you ignore the order, they probably got the list right generally. One, maybe two names maybe you'd put on or off, mainly based on things like how early in the LCS we're counting and all that jazz. But what happened was, Dom, obviously, since it's his region, and these are topics he's obviously discussed many, many times on streams and teased on talk shows, he basically did his own piece. And one of the pieces he wanted to do was, I would say, I've seen this myself, ever since Doublelift went to Team Liquid and won the 4 titles in a row, there has been a growing, and I would even say, I think actually by season 9 when they won those 2, I would say the dominant narrative became on Reddit and other places among fans. Doublelift must be the GOAT because eventually he had more titles, and then also the logic, like he's beaten Bjergsen a few times, and then obviously the logic then became he's beaten Bjergsen, and then before that he used to win with Bjergsen, so then they spin it like obviously he carried Bjergsen, or Bjergsen can't do without him, and it became that whole jazz. Because if you don't know, it even tied into the Jensen storyline, which was sort of like, which I'll say, I always used to say, which I used to think it was whack when it was Bjergsen versus Jensen, but actually Bjergsen had Doublelift. It's like, really, homie? So they're sort of using that logic as well, which is like, when Jensen gets Bjergsen Doublelift, he wins now, so I guess it was Doublelift all along. Well, obviously I wouldn't make that argument because I think Jensen's really good. So the point is to bring it all back. Dom did his video, why Bjergsen is the GOAT. And here's the thing. He didn't even just make it, although he can give it a chance to set it up here. It's a little bit different than that. He didn't, even though at times he sort of is like he's making the case, but I'm pretty sure you did say a bunch of times, but it was for specific seasons, that you do think there are year after year after year, or 4 or 5 years where it's just Bjergsen by far. It's not even that he's just like, he's number one. Yeah. He's number one by far. And basically in that one, like, it's not, it doesn't count for Doublelift. Like maybe he's second, but distant second or third or whatever. But for you, Bjergsen is the clear overall GOAT. And your video, look, there's the problem. There's 2 videos. One's like 6 hours long. So if you really want to nerd out and argue with Dom, don't put a comment in here. Go watch that 6-hour video, find the part that you want to address, then do it. But he did a 1-hour edited down one, which is obviously the one I watched. What's your thoughts initially for this topic before? Because obviously people can go watch that, and I hope they will before. This is a companion piece.
So I mean, I think there's a couple things to start. So I obviously think Bjergsen is just the better player overall, as you know, somebody that watched the entirety of the LCS or played in the LCS. I think that Bjergsen is like significantly better upon entry to the LCS. I think that he is essentially the faker of our region in like season 4, season 5, season 6. Same type of narrative around him, where it's not just that Bjergsen is the best mid laner. He's the best mid laner on all styles. So like if it becomes a poke meta and suddenly you're playing Ezreal, he's like Ezreal Xerath, he's the best mid laner there. Then like supportive mid laners come in, it's Lulu, Galio, things like that. He's the best mid laner there. Corki's in, he's the best mid laner. It's just Azir, you know, he's beating my team with Azir when, you know, he's not even known to be one of the best Azir players. So he's dominant in like not only just his role, but he's better than everyone else in every single meta essentially. And I think that there's like when Doublelift is considered a slightly better player than Bjergsen, it is that. It's a slightly better player than Bjergsen. But when Bjergsen is better, he's significantly better. He's better in the regular season. He's better in playoffs. And I think that a lot of the narrative around Doublelift is that he wins all these titles between season 8 and season 9 when he wins 4 titles in a row. But in that period of time, he's at times the best player on his team, but it's not a consistent thing. It's not like Doublelift is the player on his team. It's like you have other players on his team winning MVPs. You have players on his team that are just dominating finals, having insane finals. You have Jensen in season 9 summer finals where he's like 1v2 solo killing like mid and jungle and shit. Absolutely like dicking the enemy team. He's actually having like rough series in the finals, and people are just writing it off because he ends up winning. And I think
they're just ring stacking and counting basically.
Yeah, they're ring stacking, the ring counting, and I think that in general, rings are valued way too highly in competition. I just don't value them as highly as individual play. Like if you are the best player on a championship roster, that counts more than having 3 titles but being a supportive player the entire time to me. Yes. And this is something that I guess I was alone in the voting, because one of the key places where I actually was different than everyone else was I was the only person that had Blabber as the greatest jungler of all time over Xmithy, which was super controversial.
They're just going from titles for Xmithy as well. Yeah, sure.
Titles, and then they're like, oh,
finals appearances and all that, right?
Yeah, different teams and stuff like that. But like for me, when Blabber wins, he's literally MVP. The 2 times, like we're not even counting this last one.
Yeah, he's a carry jungler. Yeah.
There's a couple things that we'll talk about with the argument. But when Blabber is winning, he's legitimately MVP. He is the best player in the league. And when you talk to other players, they're like, yeah, he's the best player in the league by far. Even players on other team, yeah, I mean, Blabber's just too insane. Like if a jungler like that is just going to win every single time. So I'm somebody who values the quality of your championship more than just the fact that you have a championship. I think that there's tons of people that have won championships when they're not even top 2 in their role, not even top 3 in their role. I mean, we've seen obvious examples with Europe recently. We don't need to beat that one to death. Everyone knows who we're talking about. But there's a couple of things that I think people were missing on the argument. So for this argument, the way that it was stated was it was the 10 seasons. So it's the 10 seasons.
Yes.
It's each split. It's Rift Rivals included, which I immediately threw out. Like, I don't care about
Rift
Rift
that's
Rivals.
Not included, of course. Yeah.
and lock-in tournament. So those are the things that were in there. So I immediately like discredited lock-in tournament.
The problem with lock-in tournament is on paper it looks good, but I don't think there's ever been one where everyone had the full rosters. So the problem is the teams never treated it as if it was a real championship.
Yeah, and then also for most of the players that are in this conversation, they're not even like playing.
No, they don't care about that, of course.
Yeah. So it was also up until 2022 spring. So we actually did the voting in between spring and summer.
Oh, right. Okay.
So like nothing that happened in summer, people would be like, but look at Team Liquid's collapse right now. It's like, I didn't vote on Team Liquid's collapse. I'm like removing that from my memory for the sake of this argument. Because the last thing that I was voting on, or the last thing that I was able to like incorporate into my analysis was 2022 spring. So those are like the conditions of the argument. But that's my overall premise, and that is like essentially what we were voting on. So international tournaments, that's obviously where I'm sure that you will make the Jensen argument. If we were doing Jensen versus Bjergsen,
of course,
the place where you would argue would be all these international tournaments, all these Worlds appearances, all these like, being the team that went the farthest in MSI and the team that went the farthest in Worlds. But none of that actually is relevant for this argument because we were not voting on it. So this is like domestic LCS performances. So yeah, I mean, that's essentially the basis of my argument, but we can go more in detail.
I will actually say that's one area where I actually think that's basically why we had like that back and forth on Twitter. Is the problem is obviously every tweet doesn't contain like disclaimer, this is actually in context referencing this. And so when you were just talking about like why Bjergsen is the best, I didn't actually know you meant in the context of the top 10 LCS thing. So as you notice, all my arguments were about like national play or the fact like that's the problem with that. And so basically, there's that angle. I'll also say like basically what I proposed to Dom was this. What I thought was, because I knew he was going to make these videos where he goes super in depth on all his points, I said, all I want to do basically is be like the prosecution lawyer and get to cross-examine your points and just say like, well, what about this angle? Or I actually thought maybe this instead, and we'll see where it goes. Because here's the thing, at the outset, I'll say this. I actually, depending on like, I'd have to actually probably do my own 6-hour video to really make any claim that Doublelift was better. Like, I actually feel like it's not impossible. I think here's the thing. I do think the three obvious candidates are Doublelift, Bjergsen, Jensen. And then again, you're going to have to look into all. You'd have to really go deep in all the minutiae, I think, to get every factor. I don't hate the idea of Bjergsen's number one. It's actually my instinctual first guess. It's the one I would have said for many, many years. I also generally would agree. Like, one thing I'll say at the outset, just to make this quite clear, that I'm not going to go mad on every single split. I would say one reason immediately why I actually think Bjergsen probably is the greatest of the three even. I'll just even include Jensen. Is I think Doublelift and Jensen are probably two of the most notorious people that actually don't care at all about the regular split of the LCS. They are the people who will phone in a split, come in out of shape in terms of games, look like they're just decent, and then in the playoffs, look, they want to win rings, so in the playoffs they'll win and try and go to Worlds and MSI. But I do think actually in the regular season, you tell these guys, right, get ready guys, this week you're playing against a bad CLG, straight into a shit fly quest. Like, they're just going to be like, you know what, maybe I'll just do my normal like 2 solo queue games a day. I'm not going to grind. But I will not say this. One reason I think Bjergsen deserves the Faker of NA title up to a certain point in time is he actually did it all the time. I don't really, if he ever had a down period in a split, he was probably actually slumping at that point, or it was a bad champion meta, or the draft was there. I think he actually did try hard the whole time. I think one thing you can never doubt about Bjergsen is his work ethic was fucking unbelievable. And in that sense, I actually think he probably, see, without doing my own like 6-hour video, I would imagine he probably would win. I'd probably edge it to him, whether I like Doublelift more or whatever. I just think there's more arguments to be made. And one thing I want to spin off from that is this. I wanted to make this point, because you made a similar point there. I don't care about rings in the sense of like, you having 7 and me having 4 doesn't mean I can never be better than you.
You have to have some. You have to have some, but it's like the difference
probably
doesn't matter.
Well, here's the thing. The way you could have none would be something like you were on just absurdly bad teams. You never really even got a chance. Like, I also view it based on expectations. Like, put it this way, there'll be some times in this episode where I actually say that I actually think what counts against Bjergsen is I think sometimes had the better team and lost. I think that's unforgivable. Not entirely, but as in if you want to make the case like you never faltered, you never had the time. Obviously, there's times. So I would say that as well. And I also will say this, something I changed my mind about a few years ago. Because here's the thing, I actually think that it's obvious why people ring count. It's the most obvious, simple thing. It's even literally number-based that can tell you Who is better? The one with the more rings? It's a very simple thing that like any fan can follow. And it actually means they don't have to do a 6-hour video. They don't have to have been there and watched 10 years of LCS. They can just go, they can look on Gamepedia and go, but Doublelift got them all pro. And they can do all that, right? They don't have to know what they're talking about. But the problem I have is this, because I take this from the NFL, where I actually think rings are one of the most inconsequential factors ever, because the amount of players you need on a team, it's one of the craziest amount of factors, even the divisions, you can actually be like the fourth best team in the NFL. If you're in the wrong division, you can get fucked for the playoffs. So, like, basically, I'll say this. I think the number one factor that any GOAT player must have is pure body of work. As in, if I took, like, the championships off, the nameplates off, if I just watched every game you played in your career, and over all those games, you weren't in your region the best at all those, like, that's why, for example, believe it or not, in Europe, I do sort of think like Expeke and some of those players, some of their championships I think are a bit questionable, because sometimes they phoned in splits as well, mate. Sometimes they would just come in the playoffs like, no, and they just ramp up like, well, then you don't get to be the GOAT. You can be the GOAT of finals. You can be the GOAT of winning rings, but the GOAT is the greatest of all time. Like, that's excellence. You do that day after day after day after day. The GOAT, like I've said this story before, Michael Jordan didn't just go and fucking phone in a bunch of regular season games. He actually was a psycho. He used to go mental if they were losing to like the worst team in the league in an inconsequential game.
The shit out of people in practice. Yeah. Like, he was he was completely psychotic.
Yeah. I think that's the key. So to me, you've got to satisfy that first. Now, look, if there were two people and one had like the slightly better body of work, but like fuck all championships when he should have it and he choked them away. So you might even say this would be a great example of Rogue in Europe or something, right? Yeah, obviously that's the main thing against them. But that's the problem I have, basically. So that's why I'll say at the outset, if I had to guess, I probably would edge to you and say Bjergsen's the best as well. The problem you have here as well, I'll just throw in as well, that doesn't mean you can't like Doublelift or Jensen more. I think that's where everyone gets lost. What people are really doing in half these convos is they're saying, I really like Jensen. It's like, I do too, mate, but it doesn't mean he has to be the GOAT. Spoiler, it ain't bad being like the third or second best player ever in a region. This means you were really fucking insane, doesn't it? And then obviously, since other people are going to count rings anyway, mate, if you have 2 rings or 3 rings and they have 7 and 8, like, you're going to have, it's only people like us are going to make the debate, man. You're not even going to be in the convo. Like, sorry, to a fan, it is just going to be out. So with that said, obviously I don't want to waste the time. Let's just dive into it, right? So there's a bunch of stuff here. Basically, what I did is, like I say, this is a companion piece to at least the 1 hour edited one. But remember, it is a 1 hour edited one. So, for example, I don't have a point here like, why are you only watching the finals? Because it's like actually goes through a whole bunch of things, and you actually quickly you can make a quick case of why the finals were so important, though, right?
So the reason why I was mainly looking at the finals is because I think that's where most of the argument lies for Doublelift. At least when you look at like regular season, unless you think that they are like that the people voting are massively off, where like Bjergsen is winning MVPs, he's getting first teams, he's winning like 15 players of the games in a split, and Doublelift is winning 5, but like, you know, everyone is just voting for him because they're super biased. Unless you think that, I mean, we can go game by game, but no one's gonna fucking do that. I've watched all the games, and I just like, my feeling when I watched the games at the time was I was like, this guy's just miles above everyone else. And Bjergsen actually kind of gets slighted by the fact that the awards that come out in season 5, which is, you know, first team all pro and things like that, they don't exist when he's, you know, I mean, he's MVP of spring by far. 2015, no one will ever question 2015 spring. No one will ever question 2014 summer. As well with his performance in terms of like his playoffs MVP. No one's going to question spring 2014, where he is literally, the reason why I call him the Faker of NA is not only was he playing well just like Faker, and he was like the greatest player just like Faker, he's also playing the same style as Faker. He's playing LeBlanc, he's playing Zed, he's playing all these assassin champions, and he is murdering people. He had 33 solo kills in that split alone, 33 solo kills, which was the most in the split. And he's solo killing every single mid laner. Like, you can go through and watch videos of him just solo killing every single mid laner in the split and just gapping everyone. I mean, he was a player that completely transformed our region. People had to get better to match up to Bjergsen's skill. So if you just look at like the individual awards, this is not a huge part of my argument, but this is just something that I'll say. Bjergsen has 11 all-pro votes. He has 6 all-pro first team, 2 second team, 3 third team, 4 MVPs. Doublelift has 5 first team, 1 second team, and 1 MVP. Now, there's ones that are contentious. Like, you can say, oh, 2016 summer. That's the one where people are like, oh, Doublelift should have got it. I think Bjergsen even said, oh, I think Doublelift should have got it. I mean, who knows? if that's just Bjergsen's personality or not. I think that was something that people were looking too far into when he tweeted out. He's like, I think Doublelift's the best. Like, yeah, it's Bjergsen. Of course he's going to say that. Like him saying that is not like, well, God has spoken and like he is no longer the GOAT because he said he's not a GOAT. Like, I mean, that's just Bjergsen's personality. Like he likes to be the more humble guy, at least publicly. So in terms of like individual awards, Bjergsen just is voted as the better player during regular seasons, and then on top of that, the players of the games are just like astronomical for him. He's like smurfing in so many games that it's unreal. So if you go at the beginning of their career, they have much different trajectories, because Doublelift starts out as somebody who's kind of viewed as like a modern day. Well, I mean, this is going to be a bad comparison, but in terms of like him getting resources and then getting caught mid, people like are kind of are talking about him the same way they talked about Crown Shot recently with Vitality.
Wait a minute. Like, here's the problem. How long is this setup going to be? Because isn't this just a video you did? Like, I told them, go watch that video. I think we should do it like this. I'll pick the setup, because the problem is you've already done one up. I want to talk about the All-Pro if we're going to do that. I want to talk about the MVP if we're going to do that. So what I'll do is this. I will say two things first, because I want to get them out of the way really quickly. Right, first of all, I will say one area that you're going to notice, you're going to think I'm nitpicking, but it's actually entirely consistent. That's all I'm doing, is I'm just making you be consistent here, which doesn't mean you're intentionally being inconsistent. Spoiler. I think if anyone made a case like this, anyone else who's really knowledgeable watched the game could also find a million angles you didn't mention. Spoiler, you can't, even in 6 hours, I doubt you can get covered at all. There's so many fucking angles. And one thing that's really hard is, put it so, I had to train a long time in esports history to figure out like how to put in extra context, to remember all the things that were obscure about the time period. It's one of the reasons I do these talk shows. You'll notice I can fill those things in when people can't remember. One thing I'll say at the outset is, you just made a little fuck up here, but I know how you did it. What happened is this, right? This will sound really weird, but as you said, so in season 3, for example, and there wasn't Bjergsen there anyway, but season 3 and season 4 is actually when they first started to even conceive, like, should probably have MVP awards. So people might know, like, in season 4, they got the MVP awards, and then that was Bjergsen's first year, but it's only season 5 that then you do, like, the All-Pro and all that, as you say. So obviously, by the way, he probably would have a bunch for season 4, and he'd have even more votes there, even though Doublelift was playing, so that's worth saying as well. But one thing I have to say is this: you actually did what I did, which is when you go on Leaguepedia, you're like, oh, someone for these years just hasn't put them in. So what you did, like I did, is you go to Google and you type in like playoff MVP, LCS season, and you come, don't you, Dom? I saw it on your screen, to a Blix.gg article. It lists them all, doesn't it? Problem is, they're not actually the MVPs, mate. They gave those MVPs. There was no such thing as playoffs MVP beyond season 14. It was only the first year they gave it. And so, for example, I think like High or something got it with Cloud9 won. After that, what they're actually doing is there's just player of the series, and then in the finals you get a finals MVP.
Yeah, there's a finals MVP, and then on Leaguepedia there's like whoever got player like of the series most in.
Yes.
Like,
well, here's the problem though. They list that on this website as though. So, for example, a famous one that you give as an argument later is you go like, Bjergsen, you go, Doublelift won in season 9 spring with Team Liquid, but Bjergsen's the playoff MVP, not according to any official. No one ever voted that. BlixGG just decided that and put it on the internet.
I mean, it's not even about that. It's more about like in season 10, like he's the one that's getting player of the series, like more than Doublelift. Doublelift is never player of the series when they win.
Okay, I'm just saying, because for that one, you did phrase it like that. You were like, so Doublelift won, but Bjergsen, and it's like not in any actual reality, only in BlixGG, mate. So yeah, you're right. That's a BlixGG gap. The problem is I don't give a fuck about BlixGG. So I'm just getting that out of the way immediately. So I'm just saying, let's toss that. I actually think, by the way, it's a shame. I think a playoff MVP is way better than a finals MVP, like, because it shows you dominate the whole playoffs. So I think I would actually like it if those existed. Man, I wish we could go back and run the numbers. I'd love to see the stats.
Essentially, the way that they're going for that is, what they're doing is they're counting off who had the more player of the series championships, or like whatever awards, because at the end of every single series they'll just say like, oh, this person had like got player of the series.
Like the example is in the split I'm talking about, Bjergsen has 2 and everyone else has 1. Now I'll give you the counter to that, Dom. The issue there is you just did this whole passionate thing about how finals are the most important, and there are actually other seasons where Bjergsen might have been, I don't know if he was the finals, but there's other seasons where like Doublelift carries 2 of the series and he has the most, but it doesn't. I don't know if it gets counted on their page. I'd have to go and look, but there was other ones that I felt like elsewhere you did a different argument. So here's what we'll do. I watched your video in sequential order of the 1 hour, so I want to just go through most of those angles. And because you bounced around, I'm going to be bounced around too, which is why I say to people, this is a companion piece. It's more like the problem with the arguments is, if we're making a case about one thing, you can't be like, hold, we'll come back to that in 4 hours for season 7. You have to make the point then, don't you, and go through. So let's just start at the top. One thing I'll say is this. let's go to the top here.
Season like 3, like, I mean, so
yeah. So at the start, you said this thing that I thought was very weird, right? Which is you said something about playing Doublelift in season 3 scrims. You playing him in scrims, I think you were saying.
Yes.
Right. Here's the problem with that. That is far and away the worst the year of Doublelift's career, as far as I'm concerned. It's the one where the team is dog shit. I'll get into that in a second, because I couldn't believe what you said about those players, mate. Listen, I'm not hating on you, but I think we'll just have a little back and forth on that.
Sure.
I think that was as easily his worst year. And the problem I have with that one is, like, yes, that gives you more information, but that information doesn't count. Like, as in, again, you said at the beginning, the criteria is LCS 2013 to 2021. That doesn't count what you did in scrims. Now, that might mean holistically... That's not
even a core part of my point, though.
No, I'm just saying it as an aside for people watching the video, mate. I'm not battling you. The people who are going to watch are going to go, so from scrims, Dom knows he was better. It's irrelevant who was better in scrims. It only matters what you did in the league. It doesn't fucking matter if someone... Okay, but I'm just saying, it doesn't matter if you smurfed every scrim. It doesn't matter if you was terrible in scrims. If you win the game, I'm sorry. In the same way as it doesn't fucking matter that in Season 9 at Worlds, apparently Damwon shit on G2 every time. All that history cares about is G2 beat Damwon. That's all that matters. The other thing doesn't. There's no such thing as a Scrim God Award, because spoiler, that even players that absurdly get way higher on the list if there was. Just throwing that out there, right? Now, I will say, you did then go into Season 3, right? This is where I have some of my biggest contentions, but it's just, I actually thought the characterization was so weird, because I don't know. Listen, you were a player back then. I don't know if you were thinking about the historical context. So I'll give you an example. You actually said that when the season 3, so there's no Bjergsen, this is just Doublelift. Season, because you were making the case that Doublelift began his LCS career not that well.
Where
right?
I believe, so essentially, I believe that this was an attempt at a super team.
Oh, no, because here's the problem. I know what you mean. You're a couple of years off. Like, I'll give you an example. So you know the players.
I'm talking about those players. So
yeah.
So
I do it. Let me give you. Okay, here we go. So the mid laner is Big Fat LP. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Big Fat LP was washed for well over a year at that point in time. He was the fucking player that made CLG shit in the open season in 2012. It was 2011. He was a god. In 2012, famously, he was fucking whack. And this is 2013. The real problem here, Dom, is this. And I'm telling you, even at the time, this was actually something that I remember being discussed. It was like, is CLG just going to run these players forever? People even said at the time, Hotshot GG was playing in top lane, guys.
This was when Link was the mid laner. So this is when...
Is this spring? Wait there a second.
So in spring, I mean, unless I have my timer. So what
let me double check. Go on.
So I think that Link is the mid laner and Big Fat LP is not playing. And then he comes back as a jungler in summer.
Oh, sorry, right. Oh, no, you've got it. You're right. It was Link. There you go, right? Yeah. First things first, Link at this point in time had only played for CLG Black. He was never a world-class mid laner, god player, whatever. Like, saying that's a super team, mate, it's like, imagine I'll bring a rookie in now. How could it be a super team with a rookie?
Well, so
you admit in the Bjergsen argument, and I agree with you. The reason also Bjergsen wins, spoiler, is mid lane is the best role in the league in history and will be the only role ever that can always carry in theory. I don't really believe there's ever a true supportive mid.
I'll give context to
So
this.
Doesn't that mean that like Link is the most important player and he's a fucking rookie?
So he's a rookie, but like everyone's a rookie. So like that's like the thing that's
that can't work. That can't work like that.
I mean, it's like Jintei and Shifter, like the people that got second are like he's competing against Jintei.
Oh, I see what you mean in that sense. Okay, but you're saying because you're comparing history. You're comparing this to the other years of the LCS because you're saying Doublelift had a super team. So here's my problem: Link in no sense is like a super team player. He's just a rookie player, and I know what you mean by rookie, as in there's other rookies. But because of season 2 and season 11, in the true sense of a rookie, loads of the other players are like expert players. Like you have to say Vicious and Scara and Vaughn. You were there. You weren't there for that season. But you know what I mean? Those people have been around years. Sure. So I know what people do. It would be the first season of LCS, but like we can't count season 2, but it did happen.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So for context, like Link is somebody he's not just like a rookie as in
he's a very promising one. He played in the open season of CLG Black, yeah.
He's an absolutely like top tier rookie where people are fighting over him.
Yeah.
Like, people are like top teams are fighting over him. So at this time, I can give you context because I was on Dignitas at the time. We were trying to pick up Link. Link had the option to go anywhere pretty much besides for TSM. TSM was the only one where like Reginald was like the king, like he's going to go there. Okay. Dignitas, so when you look at the top 3 teams in NA at that point, it was TSM, Dignitas, and CLG, right? Dignitas and CLG, we were fighting over this player because we thought he was that insane. He was somebody who was massively hyped rank 1, and like his mechanics were just different than what everyone had seen before. So like when I'm looking at it, it's not just like, oh, it's a super team. Like, it's not in the same context as right now. But when I look at players like Link, when I look at players like Afro, like those are the new players. And like Afro was somebody who is known to be just insane. You know, he was another player that was at the top of the fucking ladder. He was another one that people wanted. A bunch of people wanted him within LCS, which is why these people didn't have to qualify. Like, you got to remember, only 3 people qualified to LCS in season 3 from regionals: Dignitas, CLG, and TSM. And normally everyone else is fighting their way in. This is the one where High famously like didn't make it in with C9, and this is why C9 didn't play in spring, because they actually failed in this qualifier. And these players just got to bypass all of that. They were in the tier where people were like, yeah, just get them on a fucking LCS team no matter what. They were in that tier where they already had enough hype and they had enough prestige where people were not saying like, oh, is he, because this is when you have like Team Marn and you have like random fucking teams in LCS. It wasn't even a question of like going towards those teams, which are, by this context, it would be like full rookie teams, right? Like a Team Marn, a team.
Oh, they're nobodies, yeah. Yeah,
they're nobodies. So like, sure, they're rookies, but it's not the same as like a rookie coming in now where you're playing against like 8 veteran players.
I know what you mean, but here's the point, because we're not going to have time to go. We can't do 10 minutes on every point, mate. Like, that's the problem. It was a 1 hour video for you. So here's the problem with that angle. You're comparing it to like when Bjergsen plays later with other people at ADC. Motherfucker, he's not taking a guy who's never played at the LCS level. I don't care how hyped. And then just being like, well, it counts. You were making a super team. It can't be a super team. That's the problem. You're picking someone who's never done it.
Sure.
You value winning in championships. This guy, by the way, the reason he could look amazing is because since he was on CLG Black, there was no expectations. They never had to win a tournament. They never had to go deep into a finals. He never had to be experienced. He never had to go international. Never did any of that. So my point is, look, spoiler, later on, Link never makes it. Link's one of the all-time chokers, my dude. Like, I watched his career. He was really talented. I always say this. People think I'm exaggerating. I was
playing in the game. He was choking versus me live. I was looking at him like, yeah, that guy's fucking choking. So.
Oh, mate, I always used to say the joke of Link's career is this. What makes him look shit and has ruined his career is that poor Belter, I think, was actually a slightly weaker version of the same player. Like a skilled rookie. Like, everyone knows he's good, but he just held his nerve and just cleaned up mid. And the joke is that made them win championships. Whereas when Link was there, he probably was more talented. He just never got through it. And by the way, he did only try a few years. This was back when your career could end after 3 years. Like, if he had a normal career, he had 4 or 5 years, maybe he breaks through. Maybe he does what like Larson does and you level up each year. So I agree he was a talent. He's not the same as a total nobody, but that's not the same as having like coming in. Like, put it this way, no matter what you think of Skara's a veteran player, mate. Reginald's a veteran player. These guys have been at Worlds, they've won championships. Like, that's you can't. How can I have the super team with the rookie mid if you've got the guy who's just fucking won regional last year? Like you said, if the guy was winning all the NA championships, that's the super team, my dude. You kept the same lineup together. So this is the other angle. That's Link. Then let's go to another one. How the fuck did Hotshot GG never come out your mouth? Owner of the team, I'll tell you, I used to know people in CLG. They thought he had no business being in the lineup and he just couldn't let go of playing. He was fucking garbage in season 3 and he already had started to drop off late in season 2. If you remember in season 2, by the end,
he played jungle.
He even played fucking jungle because the joke is that's the only way he could stay in the team. They had to do that. So Hotshot had no business being it. So already it can't be a super team. And then let's be real, like Chowster jungle was like, he just used his brain. He was just so far ahead of people in the early years. He could actually play every role because he just understood the roles. He wasn't actually some sick jungler.
Sure,
he was good.
He was a good jungler for the time.
But he can't be a super team player for a jungle though. Come on.
Sure, I mean,
say Vicious is here, mate. You know.
Yeah, I mean the word super team. I think being like stretched here to like, mean something that it's not. I'm essentially saying that he has a roster that should be able to like compete. They should not be a fifth place roster.
They should on paper. I agree. They should on paper have been able to even win
the finals.
And where they
third.
And where they finish is a disgrace. Now, you obviously go into the famous thing everyone's going to say, like, but they all messed around and played Diablo and Street Fighter 3, and then they needed to get a coach because they're all lazy. That's true. All that's true. By the way, that doesn't mean that Doublelift gets a pass. But my issue is this, right? For example, when you go to the playoffs, it's the way you make the argument. So, you know, when you say, you finished 5th to 6, and your angle sort of, which I'm going to take for later as well, is like, if you're so great, you finish 5th to 6. Like, how could you be 5th to 6? Like, you've got to at least like go further or whatever. First of all, that's going to age really badly because you didn't apply that ever to Bjergsen and any of the rest of the seasons of his career. But that same exact logic, all I'm taking is the logic, mate. That same logic should apply to him. But you know what I think is going to happen when I go and show you Bjergsen finishing there? You're going to add in all the context like I've just done. So here's another angle for you, right? Then you say, and this is just a quick one because you look at it at Gamepedia, you're not watching. By the way, you're not going to go and watch 6 years of GGU playing. Who cares? Well, I agree. But I'll just make a very quick point. When you say that angle, like GGU, like they're all fucking nobodies and rookies and they make it to the finals. Yeah, from the other side of the bracket. Like, here's what I would say. Do you remember who GGU then became afterwards?
Coast.
Yeah, they became Coast, right? With the same players, which then became a fairly irrelevant team, right? This was a fluke run. Not only that, when you say, and GGU's making it, well, they're on the other side of the bracket. Who stopped Doublelift? Vulcan, who the next split becomes the second best team in NA in the league, except they don't win the semi.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that becomes decent, but Vulcan is not like a decent team during this part of the year. I mean, like they're a losing team. They're
my point is this:
almost all their matches.
I actually think Vulcan's better than GGU. It's just Vulcan was on the side of the bracket with TSM. I think Vulcan would have fucking won if they played GGU in the final, mate.
Yeah. I just don't.
Anyway, it's whatever. That's by the side. Go on.
Sure. I mean, I think that GGU like actually gives a run. Like they almost win finals. This isn't like a finals. Like if you go and watch the matches, it's not a finals where it's like TSM dominates them like all the time.
Of course not.
It's a close fucking finals that goes to 5 games, and it becomes like a thing of like, all right, like who's gonna stop Zion Spartan? But this is my point: is that like this was a time where you could fucking carry, like you could fucking carry, and it's Doublelift playing versus Zuna. Zuna was like he was okay. Bad. He was clutch kind of. He was like a hype guy who sometimes could rise to the occasion. But like Doublelift should be carrying these games, and this is the period where Doublelift is literally just getting caught out. The whole thing is they put all the resources into Doublelift, and he just doesn't carry the game. He just makes like dumb mistakes, and that's like where it's like, oh well, you know, maybe when he was playing with Choster and when he had all that you know respect in season 2, maybe it's because he was getting micromanaged and he doesn't actually have the brain for it.
Yeah, sure, that's a legit argument. Yeah,
which I think is something that we see consistent for like years after this, where when he's playing with supports that are not like super brainiacs or they're not well-known supports, he's actually not able to know what he should be doing in the game. So I think this comes up in 2016 spring. So in my opinion, I mean, you can argue like the semantics of the super team. My point is that he has a roster that should be at minimum 3rd or 4th. Like,
yeah, I'm with you on that. At a minimum, there was 4 good teams in the league, and he didn't make top 4. There you go.
I mean, and even the 4 good teams, like let's be real here. This is Dignitas. Crumbs is literally going to I mean, you've heard the story. He's literally leaving in the middle of the split to go like fuck a girl in Brazil. You know, like,
I will say, Turson. A lot of people don't know this because TSM wins the split. Curse and Dignitas were the dominant teams of this split. You can go back and watch how the split went. That's just how it was. That's how this league began.
At the beginning, and then they started falling off further.
Yeah, but I mean, like Curse was like had something mentally like 14-4, and then Dignitas took over and they're winning billion games. So these weren't bombs. It was certainly not bad. And then the one other thing I'll say, because this is where I just think, look, I actually think you just genuinely forgot this because it's very easy to forget. Afro Moo in season 3 was nowhere near as some elite world-class support player.
Sure.
That was actually the season where there's a reason why they swapped Chouster back in, mate. I even heard behind the scenes after the Chouster one, because by the way, the summer one is a fucking disgrace of a team, so we can get into that in a sec. But the reason why Afro Moo gets to come back in season 4, I heard behind the scenes, is basically because, like, I think at the time they wanted Expecial, but he wouldn't just leave TSM then. And I even heard, actually Bloodwater, who was in the GGU team, and Vulcan, I heard Doublelift wanted him. And then in the end, they just sort of agreed, like, well, we know Afro Moo, so we'll give him another chance. It was only season 4, in my opinion, Afro Moo becomes some super duper support. Sure. So I will say, I think what you just said, you went from being a super mechanically skilled player. On top of that, like, you're a super mechanically skilled player in season 2. In season 3, you dick around and play Diablo and Street Fighter, and you lose the guy who was your brain in lane, and he goes jungle. And now you bring in a guy who's basically a rookie support player, swapped from ADC, and he's not that good himself. Like, Doublelift wasn't ever going to succeed in that way. Now, sure, that means he's not as good a player. I'm not making the argument. I'm just pointing out some of the other elements I thought needed to be pointed out. And then the other thing is, go to summer, mate, that summer lineup is a fucking atrocity. Like, I actually think it's a miracle that Monty got them to like 56 and maybe could have even done more, mate. You look at that lineup, like, Big Fat LP can get the fuck out. I watched those games. It was a fucking joke. Their team was
playing Nocturne and stuff like that.
I don't care what anyone ever said. Nian Tonso was average at best at top lane. He was a skilled player because he was an ADC, but he was just average at best at top lane. He was never some world-class player. People like Dyrus would smurf on him, mate. And then you just look at the team in general. They got Chouster back. Everyone remembers what I'm going to say. That fucking Sona game in the playoffs where he just flashed like
misses ult.
He did like an ult like into a fucking Doctor Strange portal or something. Like, it never happened. So that, by the way, spoiler, was how the split went. Do you know what? I won't say who, but I alluded to this on Twitter. Doublelift wasn't very happy with that, mate, and he definitely didn't want Chouster in his team again. It's just bizarrely that won't appear in an interview or something I might not have done, you know. That's just a little shot at Doublelift. Skip past that, because I agree, season 3 is the wackest. And anyway, there wasn't Bjergsen anyway. So we're basically just making the case, like, oh, it's the thing of, like, Doublelift
the start
didn't
of his
start
career,
as well.
I would say that but, like, it's one of those things where I don't consider him one of the best players in the league in season 3. Like, I don't like I don't think that he's.
If I had to guess, he'd probably be like the 7th best player. I actually think this wasn't a great split for him, by the way. If you don't know, guys, he would try and do the season 2 shit. Like, I'll just play a Vayne. It's like, into what lane and how are you going to do it? And just get caught on the side.
He would pop off every now and then, but
of course.
It was one of those things where like the whole reason why they're putting big fat LP even in the team is they're like, we just need people that are going to like do the strategy that we want to do. And this strategy is like raise Doublelift, raise Doublelift, try to play around him, and then like hopefully he fucking carries the game. And sometimes he does it, like sometimes he doesn't. But overall, I just don't think that he's playing at an elite level.
Oh, he's garbage. Compared to the GOAT conversation, he's not irrelevant in this season. Okay, but my problem is this. Two things. One, because I knew CLG, they weren't thinking any of that stuff. Like, they might obviously have thought that as one reason. Here's why they brought those players back, Dom. Because it's CLG. They liked Chowster. They liked Big Fat LP. They just forced them into the lineup. The joke was there was a billion people at jungle who would have been better at fucking Big Fat LP. He never played jungle before. They just put him in because, bro, he was our legend and we don't want to play an LCS without him. That was what I heard behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but like, who the fuck could actually play? Like, this is where there weren't many players. There was like, because you got to remember that this is also the context of lane swaps and things like that, where like, if you didn't have experience in a pro game, you literally could not make the transition from solo queue into competitive at this point.
Yeah, sure.
You needed time to fucking scrim. You needed time to integrate. You needed time to just remember. You literally just had to like practice the information where it's like, this is how you 2v1, this is how many camps you take, this is the wave you have to be there, you have to count the way. Like, this is where the game is more methodical in that respect. So I actually don't think that there were that many better options. Like, from somebody that was jungling, like, I was on the outside of LCS at this point, and I played against all the amateur. Like, I was playing against all the amateur junglers, and it was like, me and Meteos were good, everyone else was just like, I mean, I don't even know if there was a better jungler outside of Big Fat LP. What do you mean?
High was a jungler?
Well, I mean, he was playing on Cloud9 at that point as mid lane.
Oh, and some of it was, yeah. Okay, right. Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, here's the point, right? Let me think, what was the last end of that part? Fuck, there was a part I was going to say at the end. Oh, this is the other thing to say. The problem I have, though, is, even though for the LCS argument, you're right, Doublelift starts bad because it's a worse split. The problem with this is, right, that argument, I think, is actually a bit disingenuous because it implies, right, Bjergsen just comes in season 4, shitting on everyone. Solo kills everyone. By the way, season 4 also absurdly bad rosters. Goloku plays fucking mid lane. It's a joke. It's austerity players who should never be there anymore. Like fucking legacy players, rather. It's shit. There's nobody to compete with. The joke is it's high. It's high in him. And then, ManCloud briefly, except he fell off in season 4. So they're shit players. That doesn't mean you get to... he's the faker of a region with no good players. Like Europe's about 10 times better at mid lane. It's mental in that season. And then I'll just throw this in there, right? When you say that, he's dominated season 4. Well, you know what? Doublelift was fucking unbelievable in season 2 against just the best teams in the world, in Korea, everywhere. That's better than being the king of a shitty little pool of the LCS, right? And so it doesn't relevant to this argument. I'm just saying, if you're going to make it like that, actually Doublelift began his career better in some degree.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously weird for me because I played on Dignitas and we were the team that was like, it's like, I thought Cutie was really fucking good and underrated at that point. I don't know if he was like better than Doublelift in a classical sense, but I definitely thought that Doublelift, like, at this point, it just felt like the team would always play worse with somebody like that because the whole thing is like, we have to play around Doublelift. So, you know, you'd have just people doing things that didn't make sense in order to try to make sure Doublelift is strong. So, at least from like a competitor standpoint, because I was competing against both of them at this time, Doublelift didn't have the same... For me, I always thought Doublelift was overrated in season 2. This is when everyone said he was like the best in the world. Like, I personally thought he was overrated at that point. I thought he wasn't as good. Like, we would take series off them in important tournaments.
Oh, of course,
You know, we beat them at regionals. And
they were very underwhelming domestically, yes.
Yeah, so for me, I didn't agree with that narrative, but that narrative did exist. And, like, Bjergsen was a different beast at that point. And I don't think, like, obviously people will be like, oh, well, the mid lane pool was bad back then. But like a lot of these players, I mean, you know, like these are players like Pobalter that were in the league for years. This is players like Shifter, and it wasn't just that like these players were like shit, and that's why Doublelift was, or sorry, that's why Bjergsen was shitting on them. It was like Bjergsen mechanically, if you use the eye test, like he was just outplaying people like at a harder degree than what you'd see otherwise. And it's not just, oh, the other guy is inting. It's just he understood things about lane matchups, about how champions worked, and kill thresholds that other people could not recognize. Other people could not sit in a lane, see the enemy team like blow pots or use certain skills and be like, that's a fucking kill. Like no one knew that. Like it was surprising to me as a player when I was watching it. I was like, this is just something that people don't recognize, and it made people better. So yeah, I mean, I think season 4 is like season 4, season 5. That's when, to me, Bjergsen is just in complete.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. So one thing I'd say is this. the reason why in season 2 even they just played around Doublelift is because the joke of CLG is it's a great team from season 11 that just decides we're never going to change players. And what happens was they go from being among the absolute best at their roles. It used to be a super team, if people don't know. It was like a joke team that they had that many good players. It was actually mental. TSM became good the next year because they were supposed to be the lesser players. And what happened was when they all became gradually shit, it wasn't that like Doublelift was like, give me the reason. They were like, this is the only way we're going to win. Just give that guy all the resources. He's the only one that's good anymore of us. Fucking chuddle everything. Yeah. And that's even why Chowster was like, he was even, if you don't know, for real, Chowster would straight up tell people like Hotshot, mate, you're shit. Fuck off trying to think you get a jungle gank. We're just going to get like Saint Vicious to farm and then come gank for Doublelift and then we're going to carry the game. Like, I'm just saying it's not as simple as like, they're idiot. Like, the team was whack. It wasn't as good anyway. Let's go to season 4.
One last thing that I want to mention about this. Part of this is, part of the reason why
we might do a part 2 for this, by the way, because I can tell there's no way we can get through fucking like 8 more seasons. We've done this on season 3, mate. So it's okay. Keep going.
Okay.
Go on.
All right. Sure.
All right.
So the other thing I wanted to say about that season 2 run is CLG gets the best player from Dignitas, right? Voyboy is the person that wins like the MVP of Hannibal. Yeah. Voyboy's a fucking monster. Like he understood things about top lane that other people just had no concept of, which is the reason why Hotshot went jungle. Is they're like, oh, we can actually upgrade this. And that to me is like, okay, if Doublelift is that insane and he gets the best top laner from our region, like that for that time, that is a super team, right? Like that theoretically season 2.
That's Hotshot jungle though. The joke is, if people don't get it, the only reason Hotshot's in jungle is because he's fucking it's his team. And by the way, at one point they have Loco Doku in this team.
Sure. Well,
support. These are dog shit players, you know. No, but the point is, I actually personally, if you want to rewind, I've always said to Voyboy, you were done so fucking dirty in CLG because they signed you like a god, and you went from a real jungle like IWillDominate to fucking Hotshot GG. And with that point, I don't even know if he knows how hot top lane works. He definitely doesn't know how jungle works. That whole George of the Jungle was some of the most whack fucking marketing I've ever seen. He was dog shit. He was really bad. That's why, as I say later, it's right, it wasn't for Worlds, but when they added in fucking Loco, nobody could have carried that team. That's why IPL 5 Doublelift's getting pentas and they're not even coming close to win the tournament. Like that team is shit at the end. Well, so
I mean, I actually think that team might have been better than the previous iteration, just because they're able to fucking have Doublelift carry some games back then. But I mean that was just something I wanted to add into season 2. It's
that's fine. Yeah,
I mean, like they took our best player and then we beat them when it mattered the most in regionals, right? Like that's
here's the other thing I want to say. One quick thing I should have said at the beginning, because you referenced it a lot, but then you also changed your mind and didn't count it. So on the one hand, Dom, if players vote Bjergsen the best and they say to you Bjergsen's the best and they say to you Bjergsen's insane, then that counts. But then if Bjergsen says Doublelift's the best, you go, well, he's probably just being a nice guy. Who can know what his intent? Here's the spoiler, Dom. Even though you're a pro, I don't give a fuck what a single pro says about anything except their opinions and points. Key thing, opinions, just to context, that's just like what a player thought. The points they make are what I care about. If a player can't make a point, I don't care if you are faker. If you can't explain why you're better than Rookie, then you don't just get to me for, if he says he is, then he says it. Mate, players can say anything. Players say all sorts of shite out their ass. Players lie. That's your right. You know what I suspect, Dom? I think Bjergsen did lie. If people don't know, one of the greatest things about Michael Jordan was this. He was the god of PR. People don't know this. He never ever said in an interview, like, I'm better. He never even said, like, I'll give you an example. If Karl Malone won the MVP, he'd just be like, well, maybe he was the MVP, but I think we'll win the finals. If someone says, were you the GOAT, Michael? He would go, well, I can't say because I didn't play with Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan. You know, like, he would always play that game. So I agree. I think that's what Bjergsen was doing, basically. I don't think Bjergsen really was like, look, gun to my head, like, Bjergsen, I'm not as good as Doublelift. Like, he wasn't doing that. As you're saying, that probably was even like a smart move. Like, dude, he's just won the championship without you. And basically, like, he was your teammate. Just say the nice thing. Don't be a dick to him. Be a nice guy. Show that you appreciated the time he was with you. I'm sure there was that. So I'm just saying, let's just pull that out of the way. I'm not going to go on that much, but generally, I don't really care what they say behind the scenes. Again, I just care about what happened on the server. So let's go forwards. Now I want to quickly ask you this. I say quickly, whatever. We'll go whatever speed you want. Like I said, there could be many parts of this as it wants, mate. When you do that angle of like, how can you finish 5th to 6th if you're that good? Well, it's bad. Shame for Bjergsen's career then, isn't it? Because how in season 9 summer is he losing in the semi-finals to Cloud9? I mean, with Golden Glue playing, my dude.
Yeah, I mean, I could explain that. Go on. Season 9. Season
8. Wait a second. Let me just double check.
Season 8 is Golden Glue.
Oh, you're right. Obviously. Let me double check. I'll see if it was supposed to be season 8. Was it supposed to be season 8? It can't be season. Let me see. Oh, sorry, I meant season 8. I meant season 8 summer. Yes, the one where they had to go golden glue swap in and out. And he plays, they come in for the semis, right?
And TSM gets, they get third, fourth that split, I believe.
Yes, they beat 100 Thieves.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, they're like, I mean, it's essentially just the crown approach. Like they bring in golden glue and they're like,
right.
And they were losing with Jensen earlier in the series.
Yeah.
And they just do the crowd approach where like you are playing safe mid lane and you're just like going to not die to this guy and let like other people just.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think golden glue was better. Here's the problem. Sure. Your guy's the GOAT. He shits on everyone. He can play every style. He dominates, solo kills it. Golden glue, mate. Just take him out. It's golden glue. Don't worry if he's on some shit chop. Smash him. Get the jungle, come down, gank him. Gank the bot lane.
I mean, I don't think it's that simple. Like, I think that in those games, if you rewatch them, he's playing fine. Like, he's playing well, but it's just he's playing into a Malzahar. Like, this is the crowd. This is the crowd.
It's the counter to fucking Bjergsen's Malzahar in this game. In the game,
it's not necessarily the counter to a player. I mean, I believe he plays Syndra one of the games. Let me see the games actually. It's game 4. What is it? CLG versus TSM. Let me just make sure that I get all the games.
It was game 4 and game 5, right?
2018. Yeah. So this is the Malzahar. So this is the Malzahar in the first game.
Okay.
And then the second game, I believe, is that where Bjergsen plays Aurelia, if my memory serves correct?
I mean, that would be a classic champion if people don't know he used to play it a lot. And it's not really so. By the way, as a quick aside, there's another reason why people are actually discrediting Bjergsen's career. They all think the player he is the last couple of years, it's like a safe mage player and sometimes plays. He wasn't doing any of that shit back then. He was, like Dom said, season 4, he was a hard carry. He wanted to play Zed. Like, he definitely, for the first years, was a mega hard carry. They don't think he was the player he was at the end of his career. You're going to miss the whole debate if you get that. You'll get distracted. It's just he played a very, very long time, guys, and changed as a player.
Yeah, and so he just, I mean, he does just get, this is Malzahar series. Okay, so we had the correct one. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not
that's getting
champions wrong. So, like, to me, it's not that Bjergsen is like bad. Like, look at this fucking game. Like, look at this game. He's shitting on golden glue in this game. He's shitting on golden glue. I mean, you could go into the timestamps. Like, he's playing well in these games. Like, he has the first item, the QSS, and then eventually he's just not able to carry anymore because he's on Aurelia, and the enemy team outdrafted him. It's Aurelia. It's not just Aurelia into Malzahar. It's Aurelia into Poppy, Leona, Malzahar. It's like you're like it's just not a good.
Okay, and then in game 4, he was rising to Malzahar. Lost that game too.
Yes. Which is another game where it's like, I mean, I think that one is probably, there's more that you can say because I think that this is something that TSM always did where they were just picking like way too much Rise because it was something that was really popular in Asian regions. And it's just a pick that just doesn't function the way that you want a Bjergsen team to function. You want him to be the superstar at this point. This is when.
By the way, I actually think they drafted terribly around him in this team. I think they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. I would even guess maybe the imports had like some say in the fucking draft or what they would, had a different idea of the meta. By the way, I'm not contesting that Bjergsen was bad in this series. I'm just saying, if you're going to go for double, how can he be 50? Mate, there's plenty of times you're going to see soon where Bjergsen isn't in the finals, isn't winning it. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, this is a key part to my argument. Look at how Doublelift played versus Curse in 2014, and then look at how Bjergsen is playing when he's losing a series in 2018.
All right.
Like, there's a massive Doublelift is getting outclassed by.
By the way, put it this way: Bjergsen is probably overall, especially with a number of years, but Doublelift is the only person with a number of years. He's easily the best playoff performer ever in NA. Easily. By the way, spoiler: I also think part of that is mid lane. But I also agree he is the best anyway, like still better than Jensen probably in domestically. That's why you're right. I would use international to make that argument. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying if we're going to do the whole, how can you not win? It's like, homie, look at how can't you beat Golden Glue? You know what I mean? It's the same argument, Dom. If you can't, how can you not beat these guys from Vulcan? How can't you beat shitty Golden Glue?
Well,
it's the same argument.
Yeah, but it's not just Golden Glue. Like, Vulcan is like 5 wash players. Like, Golden Glue is still playing with fucking Svenskeren, Licorice in Licorice's best season ever. Like, 2018 was when people were arguing he might be the best player in our, he might be the best domestic player is what people were saying because this is the 2018 Cloud9. This is the one that goes to semifinals. Obviously, Golden Glue.
You didn't mean wash. You meant like rookies or whatever. Yeah, I get you. You said the wrong word there. Yeah. By the way, here's the angle though. I want to just say this though. Right. One thing I have a problem with is, when you said that about Doublelift had like a super team. Woo! You ready? You've just actually made this super team even better, Dom. This is a super team Bjergsen's on. He has the best
theoretical super team. Yeah.
Yes, Just like Doublelifts, you nil, except Doublelift was never a super team, or even theoretically. Here's the problem, right? Look at the bot lane. That was literally the best bot lane in the West. It wasn't a nickname. They were the best. They even defined the whole game. If you go watch an Origin, I know everyone goes, I love Expecki and Soaz. It's like, that team was like Soaz, the bot lane, and then like, and then Expecki and Amazing just know what to do in League. They're not great players. They just know what to do. That was the whole thing that took that team to the fucking semis of Worlds, and then G2's fucking amazing. All that shit was this bot lane. That's why they were in Origin really good. Then they were in G2 really good. They were the shit. So that's on paper a banger super team. And by the way, Mithy is far from some fucking idiot player. It's an amazing player. And then let's add this part in. I want to do the link thing to you. If you're going to do the link thing to me, I'm going to do the Grig thing to you, homie. What did everyone say before Grig came into the league? Everyone said he was fire, he's sick in scrims, he's going to define that. It's why, if people don't know, I actually think stupid TSM, I hope it wasn't Bjergsen, but it's irrelevant if it was. Whoever ran TSM as the GM, they were the dumbest fucks ever for wasting like 2 whole years on Grig. 3 maybe even like that. Mate, I know it was injuries. I know he had chokes. But like, they wasted so much time on this guy. And that's why the stupid Acadian thing comes. Like, that does inhibit Bjergsen. But on paper, on that, again, you do have a very good lineup on paper, right?
You have a very good lineup on paper, but like, the question mark of the lineup just becomes ultra negative. So 2018, so let's start at the beginning before Greg, right? Jungler for 2018. Do you remember the jungler for spring?
Let me think.
Spring 2018.
Spring. Ooh,
you're going to have an aneurysm. You probably removed him from your mind.
It's Mike Young. It's Mike Young, of course.
It's Mike
Young. And by the way, I will say this. It is not an argument in this debate that Bjergsen wanted Mike Young. Mike Young, Bjergsen is not...
I thought that's what you were going to go for.
Bjergsen is not the GM of TSM. I don't care who he wanted. By the way, Doublelift wanted plenty of bozo players as well. He even got them sometimes. I don't blame Doublelift for that. I blame his fucking GM for pulling the trigger. It's their job to sign the players. By the way, that's one thing I don't include in any of these arguments. That's why I hated, back in the day when I would actually make good arguments for Froggen against Expecki early on, people would say shit to me, Dom, like, well, if Froggen's as good as Expecki, then why did they choose to play with Expecki over him? It's like, oh, fuck off. You're in Narnia now, mate. We're now speculating people's work. It's not about that. It's about what you did in the server.
Well, of course. I think the difference here is that it was like a very vocal thing where Bjergsen like championed Mike. He's like, I like this guy's mentality. He reminds me of me when I was young. So he definitely wanted Mike Young. Like, he definitely wanted Mike Young, but Mike Young is fucking terrible. And part of the reason the best bot in the West, and this is the split, like 2018 spring, where everyone's like, what the fuck is wrong with Mithy?
Yeah.
Like, what is, like, Mithy...
Oh, he ended a bunch of games.
His hands fell off. Like, you go into some of these games, he doesn't even know what level he is in the game.
He's garbage.
He thinks he's level 6 when he's level 5, and then he flashes into the fight trying to use his ultimate, and then he has no ultimate. Like, this is... And then... The reason why everyone gave, and this is what Sven ended up saying, why Mithy was so fucking bad is that he's having to micromanage Mike Young the entire time.
I remember.
Because Mike Young is
he was playing jungle that was the joke, and support at the same time was the joke.
Because Mike Young literally doesn't know what camps to do. He's like, it was literally to the point where he's like, do I do my grump or do I come bot lane? Like, that is the level of person he's playing with. So sure, like if you go look at 2018 spring, we went right into summer. 2018 spring is the one where they actually finish 5th, 6th. That's when they lose to Clutch, right? Which is the biggest upset in the history of LCS at that point. Clutch, I mean, it still might be one of the biggest upsets in the history.
By the way, go look at the Clutch lineup. No business that team should ever win. No way. Yeah. And another thing I'll say is this. You made my argument better because both Grig and Mike Young had the same hypers link. They were both supposed to be super sick. By the way, I never thought Mike Young ever passed the test. If you look at the team he was on before, it was just some streaky games. I think he just had some players that probably helped him.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's things to talk about there where it's like a hyped rookie in season 3 is different than a hyped rookie in like season 8. Like a hyped rookie in season 8, you're expecting them to come in and like a hyped rookie is like, oh, he can compete in LCS. Whereas like a hyped rookie in season 3 is like Faker or some shit. Where it's
you say that when they can compete in LCS, then why is TSM signing them? They want to win LCS.
Well, what do you exactly mean by this?
Like, essentially, you're just blaming the GM. The GM should never sign players that have never played before to jungle if you have Bjergsen and the best in the West, right? You should actually make a world's-ready team. You should never, ever sign these players, right? Because you're saying they're just there to compete. Like, you don't have to... Remember, you could get... They did, as Svenskeren. You could get these world-class players.
What I mean by that more specifically is they can immediately compete, but they have, like, massive upside where you're like...
I agree.
Yeah, so you're coming in and you're like, this guy might be 5th or 6th, but, like... if we're just able to mold him a little bit with the mechanics that he has, he can be great. So like you're gonna take some type of like risk on those. It's kind of like when Sven joined that Origin lineup and they're like, oh,
or
he's
Speaker
a rookie.
joining TSM later, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in this finals, I mean, look, I think that one thing that should be said is Bjergsen actually has the hardest matchup out of that whole clutch team. He's playing against Forbidden, and this time Forbidden is actually good in season 8. Like he was good in season 7, good in season 6. He was like one of the best mid laners in season 5. So like this is not a washed Forbidden. People have this mentality about Forbidden.
It was summer he got worse. Yeah.
In the summer he got worse. People said that he gave up, whatever. But in spring he's actually like playing pretty well. Banging. And in the games, Bjergsen actually cannot play with some of the things that happened with Mike Young. Mike Young literally ruins the entire fucking game in this playoffs multiple times, and this is the main reason he gets benched. Is after the 5th, 6th performance, it's like we can't even wait for you to potentially let this click. Like you are that bad. You need to go out immediately.
Let me say this then: you didn't do any of that for Doublelift in any of those playoffs he played before. As in, if he had a lineup that failed and other people shit the bed all over the map, you weren't like, well, what can he do? You're like, Doublelift also didn't play well, right?
But I don't. Yeah, I think Doublelift also didn't play well. I don't think Bjergsen also didn't play well here. That's my argument. It's like I think Bjergsen is actually playing pretty well into the Forbidden.
That's fine then. You've nailed what I've thought, which is this: that you don't have to win the series to play well. So just basically don't ever say stuff like, "How can you be fit?" You can do it a million ways, mate. You should know this. It happened to you in your career. I'm sure you were way better than the guy that beat you sometimes in the playoffs, of course. So anyway, let's go on. There's another one because I'm just talking about rosters here, mate. If we're talking about it's embarrassing to lose the rosters, I'll tell you one that I think's embarrassing as fuck, and you're gonna have a hard time with this. How about spring season 10? Go and look at the fucking FlyQuest roster they lose to, my dude, to come forth.
Yep.
I'll show you it, mate.
10. So this is I know what it is. Let me just think for a second. So this is the Santorin solo lineup. This is the Santorin. This is when Solo joins in the middle of spring, correct?
Yep.
So Solo joins PoE.
Yep.
And then it's Turtle and Ignar.
Like they're all good LCS players, but that's not like a championship team.
Yeah, no, I think that this is actually this is one of the splits that I count the most against Bjergsen.
Oh, fair enough.
The problem here is that like this is probably for me Bjergsen's worst split.
Fair enough then. Yeah, I also agree. I think this is actually when his career started. Yeah, changed as a player after this year.
Exactly. I think his summer is good, but I think his spring was whack. And I think that he was trying to do things like he didn't look like the same player optically. Like even in season 9, I thought he was still like, oh, he's still Bjergsen. He still can be the best.
He had some carries, for sure.
But the problem is in season 10, like look at how fucking terrible Doublelift is doing in season 10. Look at what Doublelift is doing. Yeah.
He was nailing in the spring split. He was, of course.
Well, he does, and this is a consistent argument that I want to make as well. That Bjergsen can adapt to the meta. Doublelift cannot adapt to the meta outside of like the 80 carries that come back into the meta, or like a super broken 80 carry like Kai'Sa that comes in that it's like, oh well, if you play like other champions, you have a similar skill set.
That whole angle was even a good thing you said at the beginning. Actually, a great point for Bjergsen is that he had all the styles. Doublelift does only play Uzi Doublelift League of Legends. That's all he does. He actually can't weak side, in my opinion. He might have done it in the season 10 summer one because he just played Senna. Spoiler, it was weak side champion. But he was never a weak side player. I agree with you. That's why you have to build your team around Doublelift if you make him.
Yeah, I mean, and in season 10, it doesn't even feel like you can build your team around Doublelift because he doesn't play the 2 best 80 carries.
That's true.
As soon as they come in.
He didn't play Aphelios, and he eventually got Senna, but only late in the playoffs. It's true.
So
he wasn't good at the
spring, he's garbage at both. Like, it is literally like, it's an eyesore. So he's not able to play that. And then season 9, season 8. Season 8 is when they first do all the mages come bot lane. They nerf ADs by like 5 AD, which makes all the mages come up. Syndra, and even if you look at like the 2018 finals, the one that I just looked at right now that we were talking about, or the semifinals where Bjergsen is playing Aurelia and they just lose, where he has to buy QSS for like first because of the Malzahar, and he's actually up like CS in lane and he's 2-0, but you know the map is collapsing, whatever. Doublelift doesn't adapt to the meta, and like sure, I guess it's fine in NA because no one is actually good enough in NA to like really like gap him super hard. Like when Sven plays Swain, it still looks like Sven playing Swain, but at least he's trying. At least he's like able to play them at an acceptable level. Doublelift can't play anything at an acceptable level except for Sona, which essentially just functions like an AD carry. You sit back and farm, and then you eventually just like ult in the team. Like, you play in the position of an AD carry. He has no idea how to like absorb space in a team fight or when to like tank ability. Like he plays like he's an AD carry when he's playing Vladimir, when he's playing Syndra. Like he plays with the same mentality as an AD carry. He doesn't see the angles. So I think that's a huge point that I have against Doublelift. That's one of my key points. I feel like he is not capable of adapting to the meta, and it's like it's not even that I think he's not capable. It's like his ego is too big. He just like when you hear him talk about it, it's like, oh, this champion. Well, these champions shouldn't be in my role anyway. It's like, what the fuck is that? What is that argument? They shouldn't be in your role. Like as a jungler, like, and then what people will say. I mean, I actually talked a little bit about this with Monty. What the counterpoint is that AD carries have been pretty consistent in what skill set they needed for such a long time. They were the most consistent, where other roles obviously had more versatility into it. But like, you have to be able to try to push the boundaries sometimes and find out what is viable. And this is like when you see great AD carries come into like Worlds in this year, and obviously this doesn't count for this argument, but this is just to flesh out the point. When you see players like Teddy, you see players like Viper, they can play the Yasuo, they can play the Vladimir, they can play the other champions that are coming into this role, whereas like Doublelift does the reckless approach where he's like, I'm just going to play AD carries, and like if AD carries aren't viable, I'm just going to fucking quit the team.
By definition, you can't be the best player in that case. And also, I'll also say, that's an area I think Doublelift and Reckless were mad bitch made. Like, if people don't know, even my boy Upset was flexing and playing some of the majors and could have played more if they drafted. Like, it was a thing at the time. There wasn't a notion of I just won't do it. Well, then you won't be the best. So I agree, that was whack. I even think that's a good point you make. And I'll also say, by the way, I'll just say one split right now, because I'm also going to make some of the points myself. I agree with you. One thing I think right now, anyone who says that line, like, Bjergsen can't win without Doublelift, right? The joke is, Bjergsen gave Season 10 Summer Championship to Doublelift. The other way around. Like, on the other ones, I think many times they were 1A, 1B, and we can argue those ones. This one, though, that isn't even a ring for Doublelift, in my opinion. Like you say earlier, he doesn't get the ring. He isn't even the second best of that team, mate. Like, it's probably like Speaker. It's probably like Speaker and Bjergsen, if I had to guess,
It's BB.
Oh, it could have been. I think Broken Blade even carried the finals, maybe, right?
Smurfed in Game 5. I would say, in terms of performance, like, Doublelift is bottom two. The bot lane is essentially the band-aid for this team. Like, he's not even winning lane against Wild Turtle, and at this point, Wild Turtle is completely lost.
So that one's by the by, and that's also why you don't ring count, by the way. Because, by the way, the area that the ring counting fucks everyone up. You said it with Blabber. It's when you get to roles like support and jungle. By definition, you could potentially win without being the best. It's why it's so like, put it this way. If I make a top 10 players of all time in support now, is Wolf from SKT going to be above Matter? Is he fucking shit, mate? In no universe.
A lot of people he will be. I mean,
I know for idiots.
It's hard for me to even argue that Canyon is better than Bengi at this point. Like, people will be like, why not Bengi? It's like, because Canyon is literally the
the eye test will tell you everything.
Meta.
Yes.
Season 10 is a jungle meta, and Season 10. Season 10 is a jungle meta, and Canyon's the best jungler in the world, and they win a ring playing around jungle.
He's probably the best player in the world, yeah.
Yeah, maybe the best player in the world. Like, him and Showmaker are probably the best too.
The other thing I'll say is just this. Just to point out, it is the same argument. If you ever do that, like, if you're so sick and dominant, then how could you not win this game, place X? Well, the problem is, Bjergsen has like half a dozen splits where he's not even top 2. Where it's just like 3rd, 4th, 6th, 5th, sometimes with Doublelift even, by the way. So all I'll say with that is, I also think it's just a waste of time to only, like, obviously you have to look at the performance. Like, wins and losses aren't just whether you played well or not. Like, spoiler, sometimes Bjergsen, I actually think it's a Season 5 Summer's a great example for the split. He's probably the best player in the LCS, but they don't win the split. Yes. And they probably shouldn't even have been in the finals if you look who they played in the semis and like, they had chances to lose all the time. I even
wrote
played
that article. In the semis, and they were, and he
was supposed to lose, yeah.
Well, he was supposed to lose. We were the 1 seed coming in, but like, he smurfs his finals and they just outdraft us. Like, one thing we weren't prepared for was the Azir. Like, that was Phoenix's champion, and they were just leaving it through. And we were like, oh, we were just like mind gamed by the fact that he actually had other picks. It was like Rune Glaive Ezreal that was in the meta. So it was like a poke champion that could beat the Ezreal, and he was actually really good on it. So we didn't want to pick it, but then he picked the Azir, and we didn't have an answer to it. So. I mean, that was a split where I think he also, like, people will say that he underperformed in finals, but I think that they just draft gapped themselves so hard in finals because of
it was
Dyrus,
the one where Dyrus couldn't play the Yasuo, and what happened was Darshan famously had his large champion. He played Yasuo and a Nash, shit on him. So Bjergsen took the Yasuo, but that actually made the mid lane kind of stupid. And then Paul Belter, I know famously someone even came on a show and was like, he shit on him in mid. It's like, well, not really. Like, he just had the way better team and he had the champions. Like, the other guy had to take the bad matchup. So I agree. That's even one where, if people don't know, after that split, I wrote an article about Bjergsen. It was called like Brother Bjergsen's fucking burden or something, and it was about the fact that Bjergsen's like way too good for this team. Like, you got to re-up these players. Like, they wouldn't spring.
Wards.
You've got to change these players out. And spoiler, they did cut those players, of course. You got to get them out. Like, they're not good enough. The joke is, if you have the far away best player, you don't win like that. You fucking something up with the GM role.
Yeah, this is something that I wanted to talk about that you just kind of gave a segue into, which is the fact that people discount Bjergsen because all of his rings are on TSM, where they're like, but like, Doublelift won a ring with CLG, he won rings with TSM, and then he won like another ring with TL. For me, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't give a fuck if you play on the same team, but 4 of your players change. If you're able to like then win another ring, it's not like just because somebody went to another team. Sure, maybe I mean, in season 6, what, the coach is different, all the fucking players are different, and then he's able to like win a ring in season 6 summer, like with Doublelift. I don't think that counts against Bjergsen because like he didn't change teams physically. Like if he changed a team physically and he had 4 different players, like it's the same thing to me. Like, sure, maybe it's
material sense. I agree. It's just what lineup you have is what lineup you have, and that's what we're judging it off. I agree. The org technically doesn't matter, but I will say that's basically just like an abstract discussion. Like, essentially, I could make cases like, put it this way, it depends what your org is, right? I would say if you want to be on an org and win championships, TSM's a brilliant one to stay on, just like Cloud9 is, by the way. Yep. Just like later, Team Liquid would have been if you stayed on that for 6 years. These are the orgs you want to stay on because they'll re-up the pieces around you. That does help. So in that sense, it was partly because he was on TSM, but spoiler, if he'd have just swapped and taken like fucking Jensen's spot on Cloud9, they'd have built a great team around him too, and he might have won then, right? So I do think, because essentially, spoiler, the only reason they're doing that argument, Dom, is because Bjergsen and Doublelift did win on other teams. They're just trying to make like but in this area I'd pull you down. But as you say, it's about what team you had and if you won. Because obviously it can go the other way. I actually think, I've just made this case, I think if you look at certain other years, especially in those latter years, the other detail people never mention about like season 9, season 10 for Bjergsen is this is when fucking TSM famously is spending like third most money and they're trying to win the championship. So what they're doing is, first of all, they have Bjergsen on a smaller contract than he should have been because he signed too early with a massive contract, and then they flex that to just get like cheap they put in fucking people like Acadian. They bring in fucking people like Smoothie just gets resurrected into League of Legends like after fucking the Wilderness to be their support. Like that's, and even Broken Blade, that's just a gamble. You like just get some guy from fucking TCL. Like that's not, you aren't doing like what Team Liquid does this year. Like I'm going to build the god team around you, homie. So actually it can even go against you in TSM. I think in the early days it was brilliant to be in TSM. I think later they actually just abused the fact they had Bjergsen. Basically the analogy would be in some of the years before season 10, like I'd say like season 9, season 7 maybe, the season 6, season 7 in terms of Wild Turtle, like season 9 especially. Season 9 was like they were just doing Bjergsen like they do fucking Aaron Rodgers in the Green Bay Packers, mate. They were like, look, we're going to give you loads of money and you're here, but like we'll put nothing around you, but you're supposed to win. Just do it. Just put you in with anyone. And the fans are going to think that because they're going to go, oh, you asked for that. No, it's like it's all bollocks anyway. So let's skip to some other stuff because that's a great. That wasn't really a major point of mine. Right, here's one angle I would go to now. So one thing I thought was really whack was when you talk about him winning season 7 spring without Doublelift. So you're doing the other side of it, Dom. They're doing that he can only win with Doublelift, and you're doing the like, but without Doublelift he won. Well, here's the problem I have with that. So one of the teams that like I went and looked, who were the top teams this split, right? Cloud9 has that team where they're taking Impact and Ray and swapping them in and out, and they're going the sword and the shield. Like, first of all, like for LCS that was good, but that was already a bit like, what the fuck? This is some like experimental shit that's too far, mate. They had contracts as like a rookie. Now everyone's going to go, he was so sick. Like he was just a guy who, it's still the contracts he is now. He tried to pop off and he had an amazing team, one of the best mid laners, and he was in a sick team and he looked good.
Meta is slightly different. I think it favors him. This is like when Rengar is like really OP and like Kha'Zix is really OP at the beginning of the split, so he's able to play the assassins, and I think that's actually a big advantage because a lot of like the older junglers just didn't play assassins that much. It was more of like the solo queue players played assassins, and the players that have been playing competitive had played like Rek'Sai and Elise and Graves and all these types of picks.
I'll just quickly make the point though, because the point I'm going to lead into is then you go to the third team. It's P1, Phoenix 1. Not the ones you're all going to go, oh, you mean with high. No. You're thinking of the team. This was P1 where he's with MVP. Zig. Yep. He used to be from season 2, by the way. He wasn't fucking good then. Then they have Ryu. By the way, spoiler, there's so much Ryu in this discussion that you never mentioned. Ryu was fucking washed before he ever arrived to NA. The joke is they even brought him back later when he had no business because they were just like, look, you can sort of just vaguely play the game and you're not an idiot, so just come in the mid lane years later. Like he had no business being on 100 Thieves. That was Nade Shot. Like he got absolutely fucking fleeced buying Ryu, because I bet they told him like this guy was once like second to Faker, Nade, like doing all that shit. Like he was not a good player in season 8. Season 7, sorry. Season 7 Ryu was not that good. Remember,
this was right after he came off semifinals of Worlds, right?
I think in that team he was a very average mid laner by the time he got to Europe even, mate. He was probably about average to above. You remember, he could barely communicate with the team.
I thought he was. I mean, I guess my opinion.
He was never an MVP candidate in EU, put it that way.
No, I thought he was like I definitely wouldn't say he was like big on like fifth. I would say maybe he was like, I think that where they were placing, I think they got 2/3 and they qualified like that, right? That was how they qualified. I think that he was probably about the third best mid laner in Europe at that point.
I think the rest of his team was amazing. He was the obvious weak spot. But anyway, we can put that to one side. Okay, I'd say is this. So Cloud9 has Ray contracts. P1 has Zig, Ryu, Adrian. Now, Adrian's not bad, but he was obviously a player who only played one style, one set of champions. Have I missed something?
Well, I mean, I was just going to say that like Arrow is the person who's actually good in this lineup.
Okay, but I've just done 3 of the members of the team, Dom. 3 of the members of the team are fucking not really that great. They're not championship material, right? These are your 2 main sets of competition. This split ain't some god split. Here's the difference, Dom. You can go and find splits Doublelift's one, where the second best team would be one of the all-time great teams, like some of the Jensen lineups and stuff. This split is probably one of the worst modern day splits ever to win. Look, just winning it's sick, but this is whack competition, mate. Who the fuck's supposed to win against you here? You've got the God team from season 6, just with Wild Turtle.
So then I guess by that logic, 2018 spring should be not considered a great split for Doublelift, right? Like that should not, because
if we're going off the finals, yeah. Oh, I actually think that's even a good argument, mate. I actually think in season 8, because franchising just began and the team's all shuffled.
You have Meteos, Cody Sun.
The joke is that's why 100 Thieves, Team Liquid could be 5th to 6th in terms of like they could be in the quarters, but then just win the whole league. Because the joke is like, yeah, the league wasn't that good. I'll even say, I know this is obviously fucking heresy. It's amazing that Doublelift came through his tragedy and won in the finals, but it's also one of the easiest ones to win, my dude. It's not like it was his greatest challenge and he beat like it's not like he was LeBron beating the Warriors when they're like 73 and whatever. It wasn't like that, was it? I'm with you.
I mean, Paul Belter is like gapping the fuck out of Ryu in this finals.
Yeah. And by the way, I actually think, ever go back, this is an interesting angle. Look it up. I've looked into this a lot myself. I actually think the real best team in that split, and maybe even that year, was actually the Echo Fox team. They just fucked it up somehow. You go watch them, like Dardoch was fucking popping. That was when Hooney was still really good. They had a pretty good team, mate. They just somehow fucked up the playoffs. I thought they were the actual real best team.
Sure. I mean, season 7, there's other things on season 7.
I'm confused. We keep going from season 7 to fucking season 8. Okay. Go back to season 7. Make your point then. Go on.
Well, I would say that also this is to me like Svenskerin's worst split. This is the one where Svenskerin dies. He just walks into the enemy jungle and dies every game. Like this is just and Svenskerin's just running it down. The bot lane is not looking good either. Like it's like, oh, Wild Turtle and Biofrost doesn't really look great. And this is where Hanser actually steps up, and it's like Bjergsen and Hanser are like,
he was an MVP candidate. Yes.
So I mean, I would say that this is like, sure, his competition might not be the best. I don't know if that's like a slight on him necessarily, because I think you can say the same thing for Doublelift later.
I'm just saying you have to say it. You didn't say it.
Sure, I mean,
I'm not hating on you.
I might have said it. If we
rank, oh, maybe you did in the 6-hour VOD. If we rank the rings, this is going to be near the bottom, right?
This will probably be the. Let me see.
No, you can be the bottom one.
The bottom one is.
I think
it's this one. I think it's that.
I don't think it's unfair just because of the competition.
Yeah, I think 2020 is also like pretty low. The 2020 ring. I mean, the thing is like Bjergsen, like I feel like Bjergsen hard carries the 2020 summer championship. Like
in the playoffs for sure, yeah.
Well,
he's probably the best player in the whole playoffs.
I mean, I think he was one of the best players in the entire.
No, he was the best player in the playoffs. I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's obvious. So. Yeah. And I even think that's the split where Doublelift, by the way, was the reason they almost doubly got beat by fucking Golden Guardians and would have never gone to Worlds that year.
Yes, because FBI completely gapped Doublelift.
It would have helped to not go to Worlds that year, but that's a joke for the other time, obviously.
Yeah.
No, obviously, I'm saying that. Yeah, go on.
Okay, sure. So I mean, yeah, we can. I accept that point. I think that's his weakest title, but I think that at this time, like TSM was winning with Doublelift, they're winning without Doublelift. I think that the more concrete point that I think is that we should talk about is season 6. How those this is when Bjergsen is still in his prime. Season 6 is when Bjergsen is still in his prime.
The problem with this is I'm going to get lost if we just go all over your part, because I've got a man on the list, haven't I? So because I went by what you did. So all I'll say on that one is I just think it's not actually as strong an argument to go. He won without Doublelift. It's like, brother. It's not like Wild Turtle sucked. He was still decent. And also, as you said, it was solos that carried. They had Haunts still, one of the absolute best. Yes, Svenskeren had a bad split. It's not like there's god junglers around the league at this time either, mate. Like, jungle's always been fairly weak in NA. Who's the best junglers at this time?
Well, I mean, the one that people thought, the team that people thought was going to be really good was the Dardoch team.
And I think Dardoch was way better than him.
Yes.
But that's it. After that, you're talking about jokers like whoever was on 100
Contracts.
Thieves, yeah, and all those fuckers, like, who cares at that point in time? Like, semi-washed Meteos or whatever, like, you know, or like, this was a different year anyway. Right, go on. So here's another one, right? I'll just put this out there. Right, you remember what you said earlier about how even Dignitas was going to replace Scara with Link for Season 3 Spring? Then how are you going to show all these clips of Bjergsen fucking like styling on Scara and like the bad evil genius, the really bad evil geniuses with the players from CLGU who, no, the CLG, yeah, but the ones who got completely exposed. Like those players, when they came over, that's one of the biggest robberies of checks I've ever seen. Those players, it's a disgrace that they got to pretend they're world class and get like, all I'm saying is those clips mean fuck all. Those are the shittest teams. That's like me pulling up a clip of Doublelift versus like fucking Golden Guardians or something. Who cares?
I wasn't even no, it wasn't did I say it was to replace Scara? If I said that, then I
you said Dignitas was trying to get him.
Yes, to play top lane.
To play top lane. Oh, fair enough then. Yeah, that wasn't the angle. All I'll say is this:
Scara was considered good at that time, I would say. For like the quality of the league.
Oh, and then also the other thing is this: you then did this angle on how Wild Turtle was better than Doublelift over those first like years until basically Doublelift wins the championship, right?
Yes.
You think in LCS he was the better player? Because obviously for Season 3 he was. That was not disputable. I think that's mad. And in this sense, two angles. And this is going to be something that we'll bring up again later.
Season 3 and Season 4. I think Season 5 is like the beginning of Season 5. I mean, I think it's debatable. But I would say Season 3 and Season 4, I thought Wild Turtle was extremely good at this period.
In Season 4 Spring, I actually think Doublelift is not only the best ADC. I think that bot lane is unbelievable. And I think the team is so fucking whack. It holds them down. You can't win on your own just with a bot lane. Like, I think Doublelift was amazing in those splits. In the summer, obviously when they went to Korea, it went to shit. It was pretty good then too. I actually think that, look, you can talk about the playoffs. Certainly that playoff series was shit against you. But for the whole year, he was still really good. He was fucking amazing at that time. Right?
Yeah, he was really good. He was really good, but is he the best player in his lane?
Well, that's the point. Who else is in his lane, my dude? Aframu, right? But this is the first year Aframu's ever really good. It's playing with Doublelift in 20 season.
But he's really good.
Right, are you ready? So I'm going to run through who Wild Turtle had over his years. Remember, because before that, Doublelift had he had the rookie Aframu, then he had the shit Chouster. That's the whole year of his career. Let's go look who Wild Turtle was playing with. He came into the league with Xpecial, far and away the best support. Spoiler, Doublelift wanted him his whole career. Just an opinion, but I'm just saying it's true. Right, so Xpecial, far and away the best support player. Then, by the way, he also had Bjergsen on his team at one point in time in Season 4. It's not like you can compare Link playing mid lane for Doublelift, the hard carry Bjergsen. Like, that's also going to make you win. Because the problem here, Dom, is you're doing two arguments, mate. Is Wild Turtle the best player hard carry of TSM? Of course he fucking isn't. But you've done the same argument. Doublelift's the hard carry of CLG, but because Wild Turtle wins with your boy Bjergsen, that somehow counts against Doublelift. How?
Well, I mean, I'm not even saying that's the dynamic. We're like, Doublelift
it's how we're doing this whole discussion, though. When we're doing this discussion, as you said, a key point to you is a ring when you're the hard carry, or even a finals loss with a hard carry, is better than being the carried one on a ring. And Wild Turtle wasn't carried, but he was probably the second best player on those teams with Bjergsen, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is I think that one's a little bit too... I think essentially the Wild Turtle versus Doublelift thing is way more open. Then I'll just say this. Also then, later, Wild Turtle, while we're still talking about those players for Doublelift, Wild Turtle gets Lost Boy, an actual fucking OGN champion. Still a player, by the way. Had no reason to retire. He just didn't want to play in Korea anymore. He came over as a personal friend of the Korean coach to help this motherfucker, spoiler, just to help keep his job, mate. He's such a nice guy. He came to help this guy keep his job. Like... There's never been a player like that Doublelift just came in. Unless he got JJ years later. And even then, we didn't know JJ was a monster at the time, except for, obviously, the year on Samsung. Obviously, before that, he was an 86. So all I'm saying is that's a pretty good fucking... I'd love to play with Lost Boy in my bot lane. Like, all I'm saying is he had way better supports overall, in my opinion. Special and Lost Boy versus, like, 1 year of good Aframu.
Yeah, I mean, so... wait, can you restate your point? Because I think that Aframu is actually like better than Lust Boy in Season 4. I think that Season 4, like I think that in Season 4, the way I viewed it is I felt like Aframu had like a choking problem because when they played against us, they didn't look like Afro and Doublelift. They were just losing lane. But
yeah, I was going to get to that in a minute, but yeah, we can get there in a minute when we get to the Season 4 stuff that you all brought up. But yeah, just basically, I just think genuinely that's the angle people don't point in there, which is the supports. They act like it's a 1v1 role. Spoiler, that'll come back later for jungle, don't worry. Then there's a quick one I want to say, which is when you say that line, because again, I'm just doing context there, I'm the prosecutor. When you say, Doublelift has, Bjergsen has the fucking odd one. Well, I'll tell you what takes all of that away. Is if you're Doublelift and you're playing with Knee and Tonso roll swap top. If later on you have fucking Seraph. Seraph never had any business being in the league. I know Monty has that great story about how he thought he found him. And all. He just got tricked by someone, dude. He got tricked by someone. That player never had any business. And also, it wasn't the first choice. They were trying to get, everyone knows the story, fucking...
Zoro Zero.
Yeah, Zoro Zero or Kevin, the whole thing. Everyone knows that one. So the problem with that one is I'm just saying, I can just say also Doublelift had some pretty whack teammates too. True?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
we have to debate that, do we?
Yeah. Sure.
Right, then let's go to this. You then say that a major factor for CLG was that they got a coach first. Because true, Monty was the first ever coach in the LCS in Season 3 summer. We've already discussed that. That was the stupid lineup with Big Fat LP that had no business doing anything. So come to Season 4, and yes, for spring, they have a coach, which is Monty. And they actually finished third. And if people don't know, that was actually the one where it's debatable. CLG could have gone to the final. They might even have won that one. They actually had a really good, pretty good team that came together. So that one, I'll give you, actually, that's an edge to Doublelift in that split. The problem is this. You can't say he had a coach and point out like that. And I agree with you. Monty was the LS of the day. It's sad that he doesn't get that same credit. But when you go to summer, let's go ahead and mention coaches, dude. Because you know what? Because coaches were so limited back then, they were just people like... They were essentially just people like co-streamers almost. They just watched the game. They understood a lot. They thought and they talked to pros. And then they would just come in and suggest some stuff like, well, you know, in Korea, they're doing this at the moment. Or maybe we could try a lane swap. They weren't coaches like they are now. It's like, right, come on, guys. Bill Belichick, like, get the room in, like, bring in the time. You're going to play like this. You're going to... No, you're not getting that pick. Like, it wasn't that sort of coach.
I mean, I would argue that a lot of coaches are still that. But you know what?
They are. I know what you mean. But here's the problem.
That's not something we have to...
So when we go to summer, right, Loco Doko comes in as coach. Now, everyone's going to laugh at him and go, oh, he did nothing. In fact, famously, people used to say, all he does is just get info from Koreans. And my joke was, that's so insane for value for a coach in the West at the time. That alone makes him probably the best coach. If he's really talking to people on like fucking CJ and a T1 and he's getting their draft info and stuff they're doing in a matchup, that alone is fucking, that's better than Monty watching OGN, I'm telling you right now. And then if you can also use your coach position to convince an OGN champion, still good to come and play, that's pretty good. That's pretty fucking good. So I'm just saying, let's throw that in there. If we're going to say Monty helped TLD, let's just throw that in there for TSM, sure?
Sure. Yeah.
That's all I had. I didn't have a hater angle, I think.
Okay, sure. So the main thing that I would say there is that like CLG like went to Korea and like so Monty might not have had like the Korean proficiency to like discuss with all the players and bring a lot of insight.
He couldn't speak Korean.
Yeah. Okay. So that's fine. To me, the question is then this, like, how do they go to Korea and get worse? How do they go? They scrim all these teams.
Are you ready?
They scrim all these teams. They get the best practice partners. And the most important thing is this. They're completely hidden coming in. They have all these angles that they should be able to prepare where everyone knows what the fuck we're playing. Like, I mean, these teams fucking talk. When we were playing a bunch of Nunu in scrims and everyone started picking up Nunu, there's a reason, right? Like, we had this strategy with Nunu. Yeah. They knew that Nunu was fucking coming in the series. That's why they picked Nunu away from us beforehand. So they have a prep advantage on us and they have a practice advantage on us. How are they getting 3-0'd? Like, it's not like they're having a competitive series. They're getting hard 3-0'd and like...
I'm not arguing against them getting 3-0'd.
Sure.
I'm just saying I want to make some more points. Yeah, I want to check some of the things you said. So one thing I'll say is this: I've just double checked, and I'm just trying to check the difference between when the playoffs began and when the season ended. So the season ended on the 3rd of August, and then
they leave before the season ends.
Yeah, but then the playoffs begins a couple of weeks later, right?
It's like 3 weeks later. It's like a long break.
Do you have any idea how long before the playoffs they got back from Korea? Wasn't it like a week before? I'm just asking. Was it long? Was it
I have no
2
idea.
weeks? I'm not sure.
I thought that what it was at the time was that they were in Korea for a month.
Yeah, I thought they were as well, something like that. Yeah. Let me see when they returned. Based on this news article, they returned on the 18th, and they played the game in the playoffs. Let me just double check here so I get it correct. I want to get it right here. Summer season. Let's go down to where it says. Where's the
And
they played on the 24th. They came back on the 18th. They played on the 24th. I'll tell you already, right? Spoiler, this isn't about Doublelift being better. I feel like the whole conversation is very weird because you keep thinking I'm saying Bjergsen's not good and it's wrong. Like, I'm just saying I'm putting some context in it I think's missing. Sure. So the problem I have with that is, right, whatever manager actually thought it was OP to go to fucking Korea, look how many hours away that is in time zones and all the rest of it, guys, and then come back and 1 week later play the LCS playoffs is an imbecile. I don't know if you know this, but if you actually try the traditional old school method without drugs of shifting your body clock, you're supposed to do 1 day per hour. That's impossible.
14 days?
Was it 14? Let me check here.
It's 12 hours.
I just said because what? Yeah, you'd need. Oh, sorry, it would need 40 days. Yeah, and they have less than that. They have something like 7 or 6, all right? So first of all, that's part of why you'd be worse right there. I actually think you've given away half your advantage, you idiot. The rest of them are all sat in NA. They've just been scrimming for 2 weeks. You're flying on planes. You're jet lag. And by the way, God only knows what these guys were doing after the scrims in Korea. I would guess they were in the fucking Korea. All those nightclubs I was in fucking 2015, Dom, getting the bottle service, getting the bitches. I bet it was all going crazy at the time, mate. So spoiler, CLG was a clown ass org at this time. This was still, it was the Kelby and fucking Hotshot Jays. And Kelby was like the fucking janitor, the mom of the team. And Hotshot just had no clue what he was doing. So that's part of how you can fuck it up. I actually think it was one of those ideas Monty had that was genius on paper and the execution was terrible. And if you want to know how did they fuck it up, well, there's that story that's been told now, which is so insane, which is basically that when they went there, and yes, obviously they must have leveled up. I heard they were even scrimming against like Samsung Blue and stuff, mate, like the best teams in the world. But you've heard the story, mate, because it happened in your series. Monty literally, because he was a remote coach, he literally prepared them all these comps that were amazing meta comps. Yeah. And they all were in the logic of LCS. And these fucking idiots, Doublelift and Afromu, came home and decided, thanks for taking us to the OGN finals, Monty. We're not going to tell you, but on stage, we're just going to pull out comps that we didn't even practice with you that were used in the finals. So you know this. There was a game, I think this is where Afromu made himself look like an idiot this year. Because what he did was, he was like, I'm going to play Zilean. He shit the bed on Zilean, and then Xpecial was like, you know what? I'm pretty good still. I'll win the other side of that. And Xpecial just shits on him in this season. So it's not that Doublelift played well, by the way. They all played like shit, and I think put themselves in the stupidest travel situation and one of the dumbest strategical situations ever. It's why, if you notice, that was when, after that, when they all tried the link angling, like Flaming Monty, I was like, you motherfuckers didn't even give a chance to what he said. The joke is you couldn't be coached. You were actually an uncoachable team at the time. So I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. And then the credit is also on the other side, where it's like part of the reason that they started picking those champions, they picked the Zilean and the Nunu away in the game one, is because people were like, yo, you can't give curse to these champions right now. Right. And then eventually they tried to go back to it. They gave us Nunu in the next 2 games, and I fucking clapped them both those games on Nunu. It was just a fucking Nunu clinic. So yeah. I mean, I think, but like the thing that I wanted to mainly state here is that, like, when Bjergsen is losing, getting 5th, 6th, which is what you brought up, like,
he's never doing series like this. Yeah, I'm with you.
He's never having like
never
0-3 getting fucking shit stomped by a washed ex semi-pro IWillDominate. You know, like he's never, he's never letting me beat that ass. So.
And I'll also say as well, here's the difference, right? This is actually why if the problem is if you ever did the Jensen one, you can only do Jensen in the playoffs because, like I say, he bails in the regular split. But the difference is Jensen has way more interesting series like this where he loses, but he's really great in the Doublelift. Actually is the guy where, spoiler, every time he was like really god tier, he nearly always won. That's just when he won. And as you say, all the other ones, he actually wasn't that good, or he was having a downtime, or it wasn't the meta for him. Whereas I'm with you, except for a couple of seasons later on, and especially obviously I can't count the one now, Bjergsen actually most of the time is really good all the time. It's just, is his team good enough? Can he get the draft? Is the coach? Yeah, and that's why it's not about me saying Bjergsen ain't the best. So let's go on, because you basically did the same logic from the season 3 and season 5. You were like, in season 5, Doublelift has a super team, and then you list off players. Now, you're not making a mistake here, Dom. I'm sure they were good players at the time. But the problem with players, obviously I've battled this my whole career, is a player's value.
The super team.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying they're not, basically, because players' value goes up in different points in history, but the name's always the same. So if you think, again, like if this was like season 6, you'd be like, Zion Spartan was amazing. If this is season 9, all the modern fans would be like, he's a clown. Why is he on there? You know what I mean? Like, so as a result, if you look at this team, it ain't a super team. Like Darshan was just a one-dimensional split push carry for Dignitas, and even then it wasn't god tier. It was streaky. He had to have his champion, and you had to be able to split push. He couldn't even team fight at the time, by the way. And in this team, he was a fucking joker team fight. I know by the summer when they won, he got good, but he was good only in one dimension. Smithy had came back from the wilderness. He'd done the Vulcan thing, and he'd just been gone in like a Challenger or something. This was a big gamble when they brought him back. People are thinking of Rick Smithy from Vulcan when he was mechanically good, or later when he was the fucking like the clean up fucking just go around the map and help all the lanes guy. At this point in time, it's a massive gamble to bring Rick Smithy. It's far from super team, and then they still have Link, like I say. So I'll just say fuck that. And then also, one thing I did think, this will maybe tie in later when we do like the awards thing, is like when you say the player of the week thing, the only problem I have with that is I do think like player of the game and player of the week are way worse than all pro and MVP voting.
Sure.
Player of the game, everyone knows this. You watch it in LEC, dude. They sometimes don't even put the real guy who carried the series in the vote when it's a fan vote. And sometimes on camera, no, this is when they used to do it on the desk with the three analysts as far as I know. But the three analysts were famous for the same shit. And spoiler, I'll tell you, I've been a desk analyst for like 1,000, no, not 1,000, let's say like 500 matches in Counter-Strike. Here's what happens when you do analysis. You're just remembering a game you just saw, and if it's a 5-game series, mate, you're not reviewing it like you did. You're just going off shit like, I mean, I know in game 4, Bjergsen fucking snapped, and what was game 3? I think it was the other team. You can't remember it all. You just remember a few things. You basically remember the big moments. So I'll just say a player of the game and like that. Some of those aren't really like, they don't really work as like, you can't just historically look. You'd have to review them like you did, I think, basically. Some of those definitely are whack. And spoiler, if there's ever any debate, this is just the way broadcast works. I hate this, Dom. I never do this. Other people in broadcast, though, believe in storylines. And I can tell you to this day in LEC they do. And in LCS, they very strongly believed you had to build the stars. So the logic would be, essentially, if Bjergsen is like, it's 50-50 between like Hortzer and Bjerg, you would pick Bjergsen because he's the superstar. He's Tom Brady, you know what I mean? You would pick him to be the MVP. So I'm just saying those ones, it's not a problem. Just as an aside, I don't think they're worth much in these discussions. I think they're just an aside. It's like player opinions, you know. Maybe some of them count, maybe some of them were bullshit. Anyway, let's move on. That's nothing. So then we'll go.
Some of them count, but like, I mean, I do think that like Bjergsen's are. I mean, it was to the point where I feel like it might have been on the other side of it where they're like not giving him so many awards because he's won so many fucking like players. Like he was the best player.
That's my problem there. If there's one player in the history of League of Legends that I think nobody has ever had voting fatigue for, it's got to be Bjergsen. I even saw in season 12, they were forcing him up in these... It was mental, mate, when he would be like the 4th best player on his team. Like, I think if there's any player that never got the LeBron treatment, you know what I'm talking about. LeBron basically should have won about 8 LBPs in a row, but eventually they were like, we've got to give like Durant or someone one. And the one year, they even gave Russell Westbrook in the most offensive one of all time, when LeBron was still a god. Like, yeah, but like, you have all those other god players like who are way better. So though I agree, it's actually a modern media problem, but I think Bjergsen actually, if we could do a separate debate on this, I think he's the only player ever that never had that. I think he's the player that just always got his due and maybe more from the fucking people voting.
I mean, I would have to look at the games again and like
of course.
But
that's just a general thought.
Sure. I mean, I know that people don't like player opinions, but as a player, like maybe I was just like fucking biased towards Bjergsen. I just thought he was like better than he was, but it literally just felt like he was still like by far the best player in the LCS. Like it looked like he was just always fucking so hard to beat. 2015.
Oh, so you just went. Oh, yeah. Okay, right. Fair enough. Okay. No, he was. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. And by the way, it's not like your player opinion doesn't count for anything. It just doesn't count in this debate, you know, unless it's just IWillDominate thinks this player is better, in which case I can't debate you anyway. It's your faults, right?
Yeah.
Then
I'll just say, kind of what I voted, but I mean, I tried to like, I'm trying to be like fair. Like I believe on both sides. Like Bjergsen.
Yeah. No. By the way, I should have said this at the beginning as well. One of the reasons I was willing to have this discussion, the same reason I had the Froggen discussion. You know, all those dickheads like, it's going to end the show. It never was that they brought up Froggen that ended the show. It's that I could see that Loco did it to annoy me, and then was like, it was like trolling me. It was like, yeah, no, you have. So it was almost like that. It's like, well, I'm not going to waste my time with that. The point is, we're not doing that when we have discussions. If people don't know the reason,
legitimately believe he was the GOAT.
Yeah, the reason why our discussions are really interesting is because we do something that no one does in them, which is we actually try to listen to the other person's point, make it make sense. Like when you ask me what was the point, make it make sense, run it through your mind, like, okay, is there a side to that? And sometimes you concede even like, yeah, okay, that's fine, same as some of your points. I'm like, actually, yeah, maybe that isn't the same way I said. Most people don't do that. So okay, one other thing I would also say is this is just a very broad point here, so obviously you could even pick it apart, I'm sure, if you went final by final, but I want to make a very broad point and ask your thoughts on this. One of the discussions is going to be, because I said I actually think one of the reasons automatically Bjergsen would win this is because he plays mid lane, even plays mid lane in LCS. I think that already makes it, if I had to pick tomorrow, by the way, between these two players, I know Doublelift did win more rings, but just because I know how the game works, I would pick Bjergsen to start go back in a time machine in season 14 and do, because if you just know mid lane, it wins. But one thing I would say is this, an angle you can go with is, Lord, these guys both for many years, once we get past these stupid years we just spent all that time on, they both basically have stacked rosters. They both like can win every split they're in the LCS. They're both even in the finals most of the time. They're both playing each other or they're with each other. In these particular seasons, the argument beyond this is, individually, I agree. I test maybe Bjergsen wins because he probably is more consistent player and he's better hard carry. But the angle could be, who do you want to win around, right? When you build a team around Doublelift, when you build a team around Bjergsen, let's take the ones where they were together apart to make the distinction, right? When you look at the championships, one thing I will say is very interesting. So it's a very broad point. I want to just ask what you thought. If you look at Doublelift teams, when they're mainly Doublelift teams without Bjergsen, they win finals very cleanly. Bjergsen teams, there's a billion game fives. That's just a general point. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that they do win finals cleaner, but I don't think that it's like, so a lot of times they'll have comps where you'll be like, oh, this is like a Doublelift carry comp because Impact's playing like the Scion top and things like that. But I actually feel like this is not like a Scion top that it's like, oh, he's just 50-50 farming in lane and then he comes to the team fight. Like, this is like,
yes,
this is the fucking Impact.
Sacrificial,
like, Impact.
Of course.
No. He is dicking.
Oh, you mean when he was carrying, right? Yeah, sure.
Yes, like he's playing a fucking like weak side champion, but he's winning the game. Like, he is making every play. It's why Impact is up there. Like, most people have him top 4 all time in the LCS.
Yeah.
Like, when he's winning these finals, I mean, there's times where Doublelift is just playing poorly in the finals. Like, he's just dying in late. Like, and this is the thing that I did twice. I had 2 different segments where I called them. I don't even know if they made them. I haven't even watched my own video because I just did it for like 6 hours and I was just like, whatever, bro.
I get it.
Edited. And I'm sure that the editor probably didn't meticulously watch. Like, he was trying to make a video.
The highlights, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, part of it was the sneaky in lane lull meme, because that's what Doublelift was saying, right? Before finals, he's like, I'm like the fucking lane dominate guy. He's good at team fights, but he's bad in lane. But then Sneaky outperforms him in a bunch of lanes.
I think they're outseeing us in a bunch, yeah.
Yeah, and like Sneaky is relevant and he's fucking good in a lot of the finals. Yeah. So, I mean, I just don't even like. So sure, they have a team that's supposed to be playing around Doublelift, and maybe throughout most of the season they are playing around Doublelift. But in like the crucial moments, they're winning through other people. Like, Doublelift is never getting like an actual finals MVP. Not like the Blix one. I mean, let's look at them. But like 2018,
no, he did. He had a finals MVP.
He got
season. I think summer maybe. He got summer surely for doing the penta.
Maybe summer. I mean,
he must have for summer. Oh, am I wrong? Was that Pole Belter? It could be Pole Belter, to be fair.
Pole Belter smurfed in spring, and then I remember Smithy won. Like, there was
they actually gave Zion Spartan the finals MVP for that one, believe it or not, just because of the fucking draft angle. That's amazing. Okay.
Yeah, but
he must have had one at least. Come on.
Maybe he didn't have one. I don't even think he's like playing super well in the finals. Like, when I looked, I didn't even know if he had one.
I'm trying to double check, but you might be right. Maybe you are. Let's see.
To do all the fucking prep for that. I mean, that's another thing that people don't understand. Like, to do the prep to fucking try to do a stream like this. I mean, my fuck.
Oh, I know. Listen, the whole point is, that's why I said you can put calls as well. It's ridiculous. Like, the joke is, you actually watch way more games than anyone would coming into this. Like, everyone else is just going from memory. I am largely. Like, I will say, though, that's also why I didn't like the argument before of like, oh, but the other guy gets the MVP. Because I'll give you an example. One thing they almost never actually let you do in LCS is they just don't let you be the MVP if you lose. So I'll give you an example, right? When Doublelift played with the Corps of Yellow Star and they lost to CLG, they gave Stixxay the MVP of the series. Get the fuck out of my face. What? He was playing with Afro.
Who do you think should get MVP of that series?
I'd have to go and look. But
okay.
I would guess that sounds ridiculous. That sounds like you just took... What you did there is narratives again, Dom. What you did is you go, right, CLG won, so it had to be someone on CLG. In fact, I would even... You know what's funny? I think he won like Andre Iguodala did against fucking LeBron. He won because he shut LeBron down. The logic was, he was against Doublelift. He should never win. But the problem is Doublelift had Yellow Star. And this guy had fucking...
only like 40 points a game. Wow, he did really
I know
well.
He didn't. By the way, that's why I don't think he ever should have been that MVP. I think it was stupid as fuck. But that's also the other angle. Afro moves his fucking guy, mate. Afro moves a monster still in Season 6. So that one, I'm just saying, that's why those points, if you make them once, they'll come back to haunt you in a way. But I know why you make them. You just make them for one particular case. But someone can always just come back and rules lawyer you later, you know.
So my main point in that finals, since we just brought up Season 6, like, I don't think Stixxay like should necessarily win Finals MVP. He does. That's
I would very much doubt it. If I went back and looked, I'd be almost certain it was something like.
So here's an angle.
Maybe even Jungle or something. Maybe Jungle or Darshan or something. If I had to look, I'd have to go back and check.
I think that this final exposes that Doublelift does not have like the brain yet like he just doesn't have the brain component of the game. Like he's not able to recognize 2v1s, like to know what wave he can walk up to or not, which makes me start thinking that was Afromu in season 5 and season in season 5 being able to make those.
I think what you see Afromu did, in fact, you even see the Stixie case makes the case Afromu was doing it right.
Yeah, because he's playing it against them, and it's like they're walking up to waves where they have no business. They're not sweeping behind them on wards, and like maybe Doublelift knows this, but is he not communicating it to his support? Is Yellowstar just completely fucking incompetent? I know Yellowstar plays bad this split. I'm not contesting that at all.
No.
I just feel like neither of them get it. You know, it just looks like they're surprised when they're getting fucking like TP'd on and shit.
Yeah, sure.
In 2v1s, and this is another team that they're on where like Bjergsen is still clearly the best player on this team to me. Like season 6 TSM, I think Bjergsen is clearly the best player, and once again he's able to do it in multiple styles, and people will be like, oh, but he's playing Lulu, but it's not Lulu like it is now. It's when Lulu is a completely broken mid laner where you're going like Lichbane and shit.
If you're fake, you could get kills and solo kill with Lulu at this time.
You're just dominating the lane. You have perma pressure. You could invade a lot. Like there's just a lot of things you can do. So at this point, I just feel like Doublelift is on the team, and sure, like they're winning or losing together. But I think that the argument wouldn't even be close if they remained on different teams. Let's say Doublelift gets kicked from CLG and he doesn't go to TSM. Even if Bjergsen's not winning titles, I don't think Doublelift is going to be able to raise the team up the same way that Bjergsen did at this period of time. Because it seemed like you put the 4 wards on his team in summer of season 5, he got them to finals. Like he got them over us, where we had players that were supposed to outclass them in almost every role besides for mid.
Just throw this out there because I do have a good memory. People said 4 wards, and in the final it was 4 wards. But if you go back and look, it was stuff like Dyrus actually like carried a series on like Olaf. He did. You go back and watch one. I think it was Tip 1 or something. He had a bunch of games. Maybe it was your team. I think
it was the Gravity series.
Gravity. Okay, there was a series anyway where like everyone picked against TSM a bunch of times, and a bunch of their players just had random pop-offs where they were like, oh, okay, they could play, but it was like one-offs. You know, I'm just saying he wasn't totally. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. I still think. By the way,
it was even more at Worlds where the 4 wards thing, because that's
yes. I agree. The Worlds one was a disgrace. Yes,
that was when they shut down. But it's not part of this argument. So we'll try to.
But this comes to one of the things you made the point of though, which is when you were saying. This was a quote. You said, when your team wins without you, that's not a good look because that shows that you weren't necessarily the most important part of it. But the problem with that logic is it directly infers that if you do leave and then you win without them, it's the same thing. So the problem is you've set yourself up there, Dom. I didn't do this. You've implied that if Bjergsen can win without Doublelift, then how good could... But then if Doublelift leaves, he doesn't have Bjergsen and then he wins... That actually infers the same. I didn't make that. It's just logical, right?
Yeah. I saw this point. I can understand that logic. I mean, there's obviously like more nuance to it, but yeah.
It's not. By the way, it's just not. It's not a true. It's not a law. It's not an axiom. You were trying to make a point, but this is the problem we're making these cases. The problem is that'll never universally apply in all systems.
I mean, the main one that I was talking about is. The difference there is that when I was making that, what I was trying to say is like in season 7, it's directly like Doublelift out, new player in, Doublelift's just like on the sideline. They win anyway. And then like in season 8, it's not the same where it's like the opposite where it's like, oh, well, he just joins a team and then like Bjergsen just like has like, it's like everything fucking
didn't even have the same lineup for Bjergsen. Exactly. Yes.
There's 3 different so that's the distinction.
The problem is it's the quote really. Like if you'd basically said like with the exact same team and with you as the hard carry.
So if I put all the the credentials on it.
That's all good. Yeah, that's all good. Sure. I'm helping you here if anything, mate. I'm helping you avoid the Reddit dunks. There you go.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean,
so then how about this?
I didn't even look at the Reddit thread because I'm like, there's no way that a 1-hour video could encapsulate a 6-hour stream accurately and like be able to actually make my point. So I think that this is actually the more convincing argument for Bjergsen. When people watch this, I think that there will be more on the side of.
By the way, spoiler, I said I'm on Bjergsen's side on this one. I actually think some of these cases, which making the cases better. So I'll also say this, right? Here's one for you. You talk about how CLG kicks Doublelift. That's true. They actually kicked Doublelift and Pobelter, if people don't know. And then they got in He and obviously Stixie, and they won the championship without them, right? When you make that point, which is in the vein of what you said before, I'm just going to say, right, here's the problem. When they do that and they kick him out, they beat Bjergsen with fucking Doublelift. And if you think the Stixie argument's embarrassing, my guy, wasn't even a mid laner.
Yeah.
And he won this final.
True. But I thought, one of the things I thought he was like severely outclassed in this final.
It was ridiculous, wasn't he? I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this final, like, and a lot, like the game 5, essentially, the 2 people that are strong because obviously Doublelift has the mistakes in lane. They're dying in times where they shouldn't. It's not a 2v1, but it ends up being a 2v2 top side where like the dynamic changes when you're playing on top lane instead of bot lane, and they just make a bunch of mistakes. Doublelift is not relevant at all in that game 5, and it really is just Bjergsen versus Stixxay. Like those are the two strongest carries in the game, and they're just going back and forth. And like there's a fight where Bjergsen carries the fight, and then Stixxay carries the final fight, and they win. And that's probably why he gets MVP. But
I'll ask you this question, because here's one I have for you. Right? Here's the problem I have. I have always been tortured. I know fans in some degree have, but they just decided years ago that he's just shit. I've always been tortured by the player Pobelter Dom, because I think he's the greatest example ever of someone who domestically is one player and is a totally different player internationally, and people can't comprehend that, and they can't make them be two different players. They're the same player. So what they do is this: he goes to international, he's shit, therefore he's exposed. He was never actually good, and in fact, a Doublelift fanboy would say it's just Doublelift carried him. But in the actual LCS, in his good years, even actually to some degree, going up to some almost like the season 9 periods and stuff, even then Pobelter's half decent. He's never bad. Even as times he has revivals. But let's be real, he was never close to Bjergsen, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I would say maybe he's close to Bjergsen, but not in the point, not when Bjergsen's playing
the
well.
Gap,
like
even if he was second, the gap would be pretty big.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, what I would say is that like at the times like where maybe Bjergsen has like a poor split in 2018, for example, when Bjergsen's like having a not great split and Pobelter's having his best split. Maybe it's close then. I would have to like go back and rewatch a lot of the regular season games because they don't really interact much, right? Like they don't get to the final. Like TSM just loses to Clutch. So
because I'm just saying, even though I actually also agree with you, by the way, there was a couple of finals. This is why I think Pobelter is slightly underrated. There's a couple of finals he snaps in.
Plays really well.
It's actually really good. But that also to some degree was a bit of an overperformance, right?
Yes.
Because that's the other thing I have. Look, all I'm saying is this. I'm not saying that Pobelter didn't do it. What I'm saying is this. I don't want anyone to use Gamepedia arguments like, well, Bjergsen won with like, well, Turtle wasn't even that the best player at ADC. It's like, well, it's not like Pobelter was the best when fucking Doublelift won. Now that's irrelevant because if you watch the games, you're right. I'm just saying that argument dissolves. So don't make that, people. That argument doesn't work. Like basically, Pobelter actually probably overperformed in some of the finals. That's even why it was genius. They brought him in over Link in the years back. He was just the player who's more clutch. He was the opposite to Link in some sense. So okay, there's another angle here. When you say this, right? Essentially, I'm just asking you if you think voting or the LCS is corrupt. Because what I'm going to say is this. When you list off all the years where Bjergsen's miles ahead, my problem with that is, again, I know you're a streamer, dude, so you have to make it entertaining. When you say miles ahead, you're obviously using hyperbole, right? You just mean like I'll give you an example. You know, if you use the old system, like on text, if you're on IRC, you'd say like number 1 Bjergsen, and you wouldn't put number 2 Jensen. You'd put number 1 Bjergsen, you'd put like a dash, 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 number 2 Jensen, dash, you know what I mean? You'd show that like there's levels, or even if he's number 2, there's levels between, right? A lot of the years you're talking about, come on, man, Jensen's as good as Bjergsen in some of those years. Miles ahead.
Wait,
season 6 and season 7. He had chopped liver.
Season 6 and season 7.
These were his best years, probably, mate. He was a banger in these years. This is why he would be have better. I mean, the stats are bullshit. He would out CS people and get solo kills. He's lane dominant.
This. So this was my point here. Is like, I made this at some point in the video. It might not have even made it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So when Jensen starts competing with Bjergsen, it's like Jensen becomes one of the also best players in the league. Like it's not like
I'm with you.
It's not when Bjergsen is like Bjergsen starts like falling off and Jensen starts like competing. It's that Jensen
they're 1A and 1B for me.
Yes, so they might be like the two best players in the league. But like when people come to compete with Doublelift, it's like the people that compete with him, they're competing at a lower level. Like
I'm totally with you on that. That's a better case for Bjergsen as the GOAT, by the way. He actually had over the strongest portions of their careers. The difference is Doublelift would get like 1 or 2 splits of Piglet. He'd get like 1 split of Arrow. He'd get like Sven who doesn't make it. You know what I mean? Like you'd have Sneaky who like the idea that like again Sneaky's Pobelter. The idea that like Sneaky's the one that's like fucking giving you the competition. Yeah, your role was weaker to some degree. I agree, by the way. That's why I actually think the stupid thing about this conversation is Bjergsen is the Kobe Bryant who got everything out of his entire career. Look, you could have won more championships, but like he did everything in practice you could do to win, and at the end he has to just go, that's what happened. Difference is Doublelift was like Shaquille O'Neal. He just fucked around half the time, and he still won because he's mega. If you build a team around him, he'll win a bunch. And like, yeah, I agree. He should have dominated more. By the way, Doublelift actually left rings on the table, mate. He could have won so many more.
Yeah, I mean, it could have won 2020 spring, for example. Like that would be one where it's like that was something that counts against him a lot. Because if you play, there's no split that Bjergsen ever has close to that. Like where he has that lineup. That's the same one that was like winning, and it's not even that like the
even
other players
if Bjergsen had that lineup and they'd played badly, it would have still come like semi-finals. You know?
Yeah. But Doublelift is like getting fucking bench for tactical for a
So
reason.
here was the question, lad. I needed to spin this back. The question is, if Bjergsen in all these years is so far ahead, is it corrupt when people give Roche the MVP? When people give Arrow the MVP? Is that corrupt? Are those MVPs not real?
It's tough. Like, so, I mean, it's weird, right? Because it's not completely corrupt and it's not worthless either. It's like, I think that those players are good, but I think that like some of like the minor voting is off. So I don't think that like in this, like when they're doing the voting and Bjergsen is like second and Doublelift is 20th, that they're actually like second and third best. And it's just like complete bullshit. Like, I don't think it's complete bullshit, but I think that there is like, I mean, obviously I was salty about this because I thought I was the best jungler in season 5 summer. Like I thought I was the best jungler in the league and I consistently beat Rush, but because Rush like played carry champions against like worse players and he would have like insane pop-offs where I would play like consistently and always beat those players, it like somehow he's better than me. I didn't fuck with that logic at all. Like I don't like the idea of like whoever's better is the one that can shit on like the noob the hardest. It's like if you were trying to judge 2 solo queue players and you have them both go Smurf and Bronze and the one that has like the most fucking kills is the better player. It's like you'd play them against each other and you'd see who's actually better between them. So I don't think they're complete bullshit. I don't think they're worthless either. I think they give you some idea who the good players were, but it's not like God's word. This guy is fucking MVP. The other guy is nothing. That's why for my argument, I say at a point, even if you give Doublelift the MVP in season 6 summer instead of Bjergsen, and you're saying, okay, Bjergsen is second, Doublelift is first. I don't even think that doesn't tilt anything for me.
Like, it doesn't make Bjergsen not win. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that is the one, obviously, I would have debated, but there's no point doing it, by the way. I think it's just a preference of what you think about the role at the time and how you carried the game. I've essentially put that to one side. But what I would just say here is, that's what I mean about, like put it this way, on these individual seasons, if I actually do it by my MVP, I probably would give Bjergsen the MVP here or someone else, right? I just think the problem is, I'm showing you that MVPs alone can't just be counted unless, like, this is the problem. You're not just counting them. You're trying to go back and look at the season to see if they're the MVP. Other people are just looking, like, they will tell you. Arrow was the MVP. Well, yeah, he won the MVP award. He definitely wasn't the most valuable player. Because the problem is, everyone knows most valuable player in the modern day became what happened with Arrow and Rush. It became, if you are like the clear carry on like a team that shouldn't really be that good, and you're really the main win condition, and there isn't another win condition, you actually just automatically will win it over, by the way, like a Bjergsen, if Bjergsen's with Doublelift. Because logically, in that scenario, they're like, but he has more help, which I've never understood, because the question becomes, but is he a better player? But I agree, that just shows how media narratives work, basically, because those are 2 media awards. That's why they gave those people the wins.
Yeah.
And then also, I will just say, I want to give you props for 1 second. I did think it was fucking hilarious, that Lena angle you had for the last title. And just props for even Darren mentioning it in the video. Fair play. That cracked me up. That really did.
I mean, he should be on that team, right?
Yeah,
like, I mean, it's what you said. That's a Bjergsen win. That's a Bjergsen ring. That's not a Bjergsen and Doublelift ring, even though it's 1-1 in that 2020 summer.
No, that one is. Yeah.
Like that is like, I mean, that's Doublelift. Like Doublelift played his worst season ever before he retired.
Yeah. Here's what I was confused by, though. The one that really confuses me is season 7 summer, though. Because I think they were both really good again. I thought this was another brilliant... By the way, this is why I think the stupidest thing ever to happen in the LCS was Bjergsen and Doublelift split up. I think these guys are both more... That's Kobe and Shaq again, mate. You guys could have stacked these rings forever. The joke is we'd be having a discussion now. Well, you know, Bjergsen has like 13, Doublelift has 12. Let's go through a 15-hour video, Dominic. They could have just done this. Like, I think it's so stupid they split this table. But what's weird is, on that particular one, right, they both played really well in my opinion. But you just sort of like picked a really bad game, and that was sort of the deciding factor.
No, I went through all the games. Maybe that was just one.
Oh, maybe it's all that was in the video then. Fair enough. You do think overall was Bjergsen a consistently better player that split?
I felt like Doublelift pussied out a lot of times in that finals. Like it didn't. So I think Doublelift just came back and he didn't look like himself. I think that the split off really hurt him in terms of his like overall level of play, because in season 6 in summer, it's like I think that they were both good. You know, even if I think Bjergsen was better in season 6 summer, I think they were both like, you know, top of their role. Like they're both firing on all cylinders.
If I just ask a question, was there ever a split where Doublelift was actually better than Bjergsen?
What do you mean, ever, or like when?
Yeah, ever.
Yeah, definitely. I would say season 9 summer.
Oh right, okay, yeah. But beyond that, all the rest is Bjergsen every single time.
Season 8 spring I think is debatable. I mean, if you want to say Doublelift, I think that's fine. I think season 8 and season 9.
Oh, because you said that was the Bjergsen had a little bit of a down split in spring.
Season 9 spring, I think Bjergsen is really good. And I think that he also creates a dynamic in that finals, which is a winning dynamic, which part of the reason why, like, because TSM was not supposed to be competing with TL.
Oh, no, it was supposed to be C9 against TL. Yes. Yeah, and TL was supposed to win anyway. Yeah, of course.
And Bjergsen also carried that semifinals where like they looked like they were going to lose. He had the Kali flank in game 3, so he carries the semifinals. He gets to the finals. And
that's actually that would have been one of his best rings if they won that game 5, by the way.
Yeah, it was. And this is one thing that I fucking hate. It's like, so that ring, so Bjergsen is at fault somehow for Sven running it down when they have a lead. Like, I don't fuck with that at all. Like Sven ran it down when they had a massive lead. That's not Doublelift capitalizing or like taking the game into his own hands or like something crazy like that. TSM had a comp where they eventually get outscaled, and that ruined the entire game. And it wasn't even just one int. I thought it was just
Jensen one int. Carry that game 5 though. Am I misremembering that one?
He ends up with a really good score. He starts carrying the game after Sven throws, and it's like, and Sven ints massively twice.
By the way, wait a minute. Just one question. People are allowed to int in the Bjergsen and then him carry the game, right?
Sure. Yes.
That's allowed in the other cases. I'm pretty sure if we go back to a lot of rings of Bjergsen winning, I'm sure idiots in and then he takes advantage and smashes the game.
Sure. I mean, I would say that this is like the most egregious like game 5 int I think I've ever
seen from
a player.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, I have to say.
It's pretty bad. But
the reason it's really bad, if people don't know, it isn't even the play. It's just that there was no upside to it. You just check a brush. That's the part I don't even get.
He walked the Baron alone.
Okay, there you go.
He just walks the Baron. But the other thing is, it's twice. Sven has another option to carry that game in a dragon fight, and he shifts it again and dies. So he actually ints twice.
Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of when he goes in the brush then. Okay, could be.
Yeah. That's the one bot lane. And Jensen, so Jensen, like, I guess, ends up with a really good scoreline, but he's massively behind. He's playing LeBlanc, and he's massively behind in the game. Like, that's not a condition where you have agency left in the game, and then Sven ends it back. But the one thing I wanted to say about this is the dynamic of this series that I thought was really crucial was that Bjergsen just won the Zoe war in game 1 and game 2. So in game 1, TL has a specific Zoe counter prepared, which is Heimerdinger, something that they prepped in scrims, and this was their angle. They thought it was like unplayable for the Zoe, and Bjergsen has a really nice pop off like around one of the Rift Herald fights, and he just like he just dominates the fight, and then it opens up the team to carry that game. Game afterwards, Jensen gets the Zoe, right? They're like, okay, fuck the Zoe counter. We had a Zoe counter, it didn't work out. We're gonna pick the Zoe away from Bjergsen. Jensen picks the Zoe, and Bjergsen picks Lux, which is his like unique counter that he apparently got from Froggen this year.
Yes, he did. And that was the one from Solo Queue over, yeah. Oh, Golden Guardians era, yeah.
Yeah. So Bjergsen gets the Lux, and he plays really well. So like the first 2 games, Bjergsen is like running a fucking clinic. Like, sure, BB probably plays better overall at a point. Like his Vlad like carries the game at the end, but like the dynamic of it is Zoe is a crucial pick at this time. It is a crucial meta mid laner that is considered really OP. And the fact that TSM goes 2-0 up because of that, I think is something that's really
I know what you mean, but the problem I have with that one is, aren't you just essentially arguing against Broken Blade actually carrying the series, and he kind of doesn't get to get the credit for being the better player, right? Because he didn't play the key pick. Still, as a player, he fucking smurfed the series, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think he did, right? This one.
He smurfed the series. He smurfed the series for sure. I would say like in some of the in the losses, he had some like weird games, but I guess so did like the whole team.
Of course,
there was like a really crucial int he had in game number 3, which I think lost them the game because they were ahead in game 3 as well. So they threw 2 games in this finals. And it like the bot lane, like, yeah, I mean, this was Doublelift playing with the MVP. This is when Core JJ is like completely smurfing, right? Like he was just doing things on support that people in NA didn't know were possible. He was able to flank a lot. He was playing Alistar, and he's the best player. And they're like getting neutralized bot lane, just whatever. I mean, yeah, Sven throws, but it wasn't like Doublelift was outplaying Sven even in this final. So, I would say like the other ones, I would say sure we can make the argument Doublelift's the better player. He has better results in season 8 spring, summer, and season 9 summer. My argument is mainly just that like when Bjergsen is not the better player than Doublelift, he's a lot closer. Closer.
So I've got a quick follow up then. Is it even possible, do you believe, playing ADC in all of these splits as an LCS ADC, that you could ever actually, comparing to what Bjergsen did at mid lane, could an ADC ever have actually been better than Bjergsen? I would argue no, based on how people judge the game.
They would have to be
they'd have to be UZI, basically, right?
Yes. They would have to be extremely lane dominant. And
I don't think it's possible. That's why, by the way, a spoiler, the real discussion would have been better if it was Jensen, but it has to be international. That's the problem. The problem with this is ADC already. I always said that to them. Look, as good as you are, mate, you're all playing Time Crisis till the team fight in a lot of the years. Like, you don't get to choose to smash the lane and win from that. Even smashing the lane means the jungle comes behind you. Like, there's a million factors between the roles that mean you can't really compare directly. We're just doing it because we're comparing players. I'm just saying, that doesn't mean Bjergsen double it, but I'm just saying I actually think your argument essentially is no one who was other than a mid laner would have been better than Bjergsen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the case most of the time. I mean, you have to be exceptional from another role, and I think that's just one of the things that comes along with mid lane. You have more agency, but if you play well, like, and you're making all the plays, and somebody else is just farming, then you get the credit over the guy that's just farming. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So then you did say the line, which was sort of like, what more do people want Bjergsen to do? I'll tell you a really obvious answer. They want him, when he gets world-class junglers and supports, to actually work with them and look good with them and have like a core and have like a jungle synergy but that's one area you got to give it to him. He had a pretty bad career in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he plays the game in like a certain way that like supports don't really fuck. Yeah. I also feel like over time his game read has gotten worse and worse. Like I would blame him more in the earlier like season 6, season 7. Like I thought Yellowstar was just trash. Like I actually thought when he came to NA, he was just washed.
A lot of these, but the problem is the track record of junglers and supports becoming trash on Bjergsen is crazy, dude.
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I will. Yeah, I definitely think that's possible.
It doesn't mean you're a bad player, by the way. If you still like. People like forgive him, we're a dickhead, mate. But if you smash the game, it's still fine. You're still a bad player.
I think this is the problem. I think that this is the main problem is that they keep on trying to force the same type of player around Bjergsen. They're like, we need. So the whole narrative around this time is that Bjergsen not only has to be the best player like in lane, he also has to micromanage the team. Like he has to be the shot caller for the team. So they kept on trying to get Yellowstar. Mithy, Smoothie, these people that are known for being massive shot callers to take pressure off him, but mechanically those players aren't good. And I think that Bjergsen has like a standard where like, you know, like before you even get to like the macro and stuff, he's almost one of those people that's like, but like what were you doing here? Like why did you like throw this skill shot here? Like why did you play like that? It's almost like he has a certain standard for individual play that doesn't make sense for the players that they're getting, right? Like it seems like they almost should be getting the player like Vulcan, for example, who like, I mean, obviously I'm talking about like earlier years, like season 9 Vulcan, where it's like a really mechanically talented, but like,
okay, I've got a good point coming up. Don't worry, it's going somewhere.
Go for it.
Do you want to go where it's going? Here's one point I think's a massive point, but you didn't mention it. When you were talking about Core JJ, right? One of the reasons I think it's actually obvious why Core JJ looked like absolute trash with Hans Sama is because Hans Sama is like Doublelift, right? He wants to stay in lane, get all the resources, win the lane, and then we're going to do something. But what was brilliant about these years, it's actually one of the reasons I actually think Doublelift also looks worse, is because sometimes he has to be on his own. So Core JJ could do a god-tier roaming timing, outclass the other support, work with the jungle, and as a result, it's fucking sick in that regard, right? So the problem I have with that is, I would say the weakest area Core JJ's games is pure laning. So it's not like, dude, when you say he had the MVP, he didn't have like Afro Moon, the smash in the lane every time. If anything, he's working on like a weird reckless thing of like, yo, Hillsang, you sort of go sometimes, and then I have to sort of stay a bit, and it's like going like that. It's just a different dynamic is all I'm saying. It's not as simple as like, you had the best support. I mean, like, it wasn't the best lane support though.
I mean, I could be wrong. The way that I was remembering it was that Core JJ was dominant in lane, and like maybe part of that was like
pretty good.
Like, I mean, when he played with Tactical, they were just killing everyone, right? Like,
I'll give you that one. I thought Tactical was more of him doing a Chowster, though, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that was my take.
Yeah, but I mean, he was good in lane with Tactical before Tactical.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Complete shit.
Yeah.
So,
and remember, I am just going from memory. I'm not saying I watched all the splits back. Obviously, no one can.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch every single game of the split.
Just an idea I'm throwing out there. Go on.
I thought at the time, And I mean, like I said, I could be wrong. I thought at the time that Core JJ was like the complete package as far as like support was concerned at that time in the region. Season 9 spring, I think he's just better. He's just better.
Yeah, sure. So, like, first of all, I'll just throw this out there. It was just the Ryu point I said before. When you're talking about like Paul Beller smashing that fight, he was playing against Ryu, mate. Like, I don't give a flying fuck. I'm sorry. Like, like that just doesn't even matter at that point in time. Then also, how about this? In season 8, remember, everyone forgets this, Dom. Everyone does this. I've done it myself. Everyone thinks that the Team Liquid dynasty won 4 titles in a row, but then they go and look, Dom, and they're like, wait a minute. How's Core JJ only got 2 LCS? Because he wasn't there in season 8. But you never mentioned who was there in season 8. Who was in spring in season 8?
Ole.
Yeah, and you know what's brilliant about Ole? That's a Mithy scenario. That's someone who's amazing. He was even an MVP candidate at the split before. He comes into TL. He literally is shit, has loads of problems. If you remember at MSI, he subs himself out. He's having some sort of mental break. That year, mate, that in itself is going to make it be hard to be the best ADC to some degree. Listen, you might not play it. You get my point. Go on.
No, I mean, I agree with that. I agree with that. I don't think that. I think Ole looked fine up until like MSI. I think MSI was the breaking point. Then I think it's
he wasn't like the best. He wasn't the best support or whatever, right?
I mean, support is just not good at that point. So like he's probably like top 3 supports, but it's not like he's playing super well. No. It's more just that like
it's not like having a Core JJ is the point.
Well, I mean, the main problem is that Mithy comes over and then Mithy's shit. So like now you have like the TSM support.
I'm saying this happened to both of them though. Yeah, they both had splits where these things happened also. It didn't always work out. Similarly, I'll just go on the other angle, right? So when you point out about Core JJ and he's got Core JJ here and he's working and he's even like the one doing it, right? One thing I never understood this is in this video, again, it probably doing the 6-hour one, but I didn't watch it, mate. It's like jungle doesn't exist. It's like mid lane's a 1v1 role. It's all solo kills. Like, dude, jungle, at least I've watched Europe. I'll say that mainly in the other major regions. I watch LCS, like probably the least of all, but I still watch all the playoffs and the major games and stuff, right? I would say one of the worst areas of Bjergsen's careers is what happened to his junglers, and more importantly, how they work together. Dude, the joke was everyone said either the jungler is Bjergsen's dog, right? Do you know how utterly fucking ridiculous it is to Svenskerin's career if he becomes your dog? Like, that's mental. This guy was a beast. He was an MVP candidate in his career. Then and later he was
ruined by Reggie, in my opinion.
Yeah, he probably was. But then essentially what I'm saying is you can't go. Doublelift worked really great with this Core JJ guys. It's mainly because of that. Bjergsen worked shit with this other guy, but that doesn't count against him. What's the equation here? Shouldn't it count against you if you're never good with any good junglers? They're all good elsewhere.
I mean, I think most junglers just collapse for TSM period. But I mean, I think that it's not that he's never good with like a jungler. You know, like in season 5, for example, I think he's actually good with Santorin. That's one of the main reasons because I was the one getting fucked by them. Like season 5 with Santorin.
Oh, Santorin. Sorry, I thought you said Sven's. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, with Santorin, I think in season 5, like they actually have a lot of they do a lot of unique things that other mid junglers are not doing. So they invade a lot of blues on timers. And this is like before they added in all the timers into the game, and you could just look. So I think that he was actually working well with Santorin, and I think Santorin just collapsed under the pressure. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that junglers don't work well with him, and I guess maybe he's to blame because I think that he's probably very solid in the way that he views the game. Like he seems pretty fixed on playing the game a certain way, which is probably the biggest critique against Bjergsen.
It's a good one though, right? You got to sort of include it because here's the thing, Dom. What I actually liked about your argument, genuinely, I don't think you had a bad faith argument in any way. I don't think you actually tried to exclude the things I'm saying now. I think you just can't say everything in the whole video. But I would just say that. The problem you have here, right, is if someone only watched your video, Dom, they really would believe Bjergsen was faker the whole time and that it was just morons not letting him win and that he never had the team. No, like half the time also he had his own problems. Just like Doublelift, by the way. Doublelift, by the way, has been a teammate that's difficult. He's pushed people out. He's driven people away. He might even be a contributing factor as to why people get depressed and quit the team and all sorts of shit, mate. They all have massive problems. They're all their own issues, you know.
Sure. I mean, I would say like season 8 and season 9. I mean, he doesn't really have great junglers, right? Like season 8 and season 9, he has Mike Young, Greg, Acadian.
Still the story we said before, the stupid thing where they just kept believing in Greg. So again, but they aren't the GMs, obviously.
I mean, season 7, I don't think that they're working poorly together. It seems like Svenskeren is actually playing well when it matters. There's periods in the split where he's playing poorly, but I don't know if that's like necessarily like a coordination thing. I think that was just mainly.
By the way, I'm getting towards the end of my points here, so we can just go through this pretty quick if you want. Right, one thing I'll say just in passing comment, it wasn't about internationals, so I'm not going to go into that. But when you were sort of like, I'd have to go back and look. I actually think that one you'd probably actually look a little bit dodgy on. I think actually, because here's the problem. You've got the get out because you say you don't care about MSI. If we're just going off pure games at proper MSIs and Worlds, Doublelift actually has quite a lot of like BO1s where he plays well in losses, or even he actually wins the game. MSI's had games where he's beat like the best Uzi I team ever. It's happened. It's real. It happened. There's never a game ever, by the way, ever in history where it's like, fucking Bjergsen's like, oh, it's Rookie, the best player. Well, that's never happened ever in history. I'm just saying. Yeah. But again, that's a side video. That's just an aside. It's not for this case. But what I want to do is there's one big point I have here. And this is a key one. There's two actually, but this is the big one about the game. When you make that argument earlier, I just want to get your take on this contrast because it's the same scenario to me. When you say things like, he plays with the MVP, or you say things like, they won without even playing with him. So how good is he? Like, here's one question I would have. You know, Faker must actually be way less of a GOAT in your mind by that logic than everyone else thinks he is. Because spoiler, when Faker won Season 5 Worlds, Marin was the MVP. Loads of people agreed with it. I didn't, but loads of people did. Then how about this? Famously, the first split was that year of LCK. They actually won the LCK final without even playing Faker. They just used EasyHoon against and EasyHoon gets the MVP of the playoffs. Doesn't that count against Faker? It should, right?
Yes.
As long as you say yes, I'm fine with it, mate. Like, it's just if we're going to take the argument, we can't go, but it's Faker. No, by the way, I even agree. It's why if you notice, I get a lot of hate from Koreans that are like, how dare you say that about Faker? It's like, bro, I have to just look at his career honestly. I have to look at times where it's like, just because like he's Faker doesn't mean he's always the best. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, I would say season 5 is. The counter argument is that in season 4, like, even though he doesn't even go to Worlds, like Pawn is really the only mid laner that I think is better than him in that time period. I think Pawn is like
maybe
the counter
in
to
spring
Faker.
Dade was or something, but obviously Dade only ever does spring and he falls off. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm 100%.
No, I'm good with that. Okay. And then similarly, in that case, you'll agree with this. I also think that the reason why Faker's GOAT case is so overrated, I'm just going to make this contrasted to Bjergsen, it's because he didn't do what Bjergsen did. Faker has had like another half of a career where he's never the MVP. He's winning titles and in finals, but it ain't him that's the reason. And he's not the best mid. And oftentimes he's even beating the best mid, like a Chovy or some motherfucker like that, or Genji. Like, he's beating the guys who... So like on that angle as well, similarly, I also think people have overblown Faker's career, mate. That's another one that he's not overrated in the grand sense. He is probably still the greatest, but I just think you have to build it up. It's why I actually think we'll do a separate one of these videos about Rookie versus Faker sometime. I think that's actually one of the most interesting ones you could do.
Look, the hard part about that is that you have to like pretty much only use like eye test and be like, during this fucking season, Rookie is just better than Faker. It's like, go watch the season. Like, you
can also do the teams, because here's the difference. I think if you look at some of Rookie's teams, he's incapable. He could have won. You could have had to be. You could be 2 times Faker and you wouldn't even have won the LPL sometimes.
What about right now? What about right now for Rookie? Like, is Rookie not better than Faker right now? I think that Rookie is better than Faker right now. And V5 just fucked him over. Like, he's like Carson's running it.
Even that whole top lane, he's got rich, they're going to do it. Why are we playing with him? You know what I mean? Like, why can I just have a real top lane? I'm in the LPL. Like, I agree, mate. I think Rookie is the most fucking capped player by his teammates I've ever seen in League of Legends. Like, the joke is,
Rookie
he should have lots of worlds. Yeah, and mate, he's even the one who carries the game that they'll lose in the region. Like, fuck you. I'm so sick of watching it, mate. It drives me crazy because I actually do think he's one of the most clutch players of all time as well. It's just a dumbass will go if he's clutch, why didn't he win? Because it's team game, homie. So here was the other point I was going to make. Because by the way, as an aside, I'll just quickly throw these out there to hurt the feelings of Faker fans. You're all going to go, yeah, but that was in the end, Thorin. What about all the early years? How about Season 6 Spring, Duke the MVP of the playoffs that they win? Season 7 Spring, Peanut MVP of the playoffs that they win, and MSI. Wasn't even voted mid for the all-pro team at MSI 26. Like, basically, that's just a Faker thing. But I'm pointing out, like, you have to use the same logic. I'll go to my one major other point now, basically. And it's this. When you say about winning MVP, again, if you're doing Dom's MVP, I go and watch the split, I decide this guy is the MVP. That's different. If you're going on who won the MVP, like I said earlier, I've got to quickly bring this up. On the opposite side, while I do think Bjergsen had an insane amount of wins where they gave him so many times, and I think it was ever unquestionable. Put it this way, the ultimate joke, I always bring it up, you know this, is how can they say in Season 7 Summer, Jensen's the best mid, but then Bjergsen's the MVP? It's like,
did this make the video?
I can't remember. That might not have, I'm afraid.
That was something that I say in the video.
Oh, fair enough then.
That's a whole fucking like other discussion where I'm like, I don't even know how the fuck this could be possible, because like how is
But here's the point I was trying to make on Twitter. And listen, I understand Twitter's characters and all this, and you were probably talking about something else. But you actually did just completely ignore my point there. I'm not exaggerating, Dom. I can go and show you. I don't think that I don't know if there's a single split where Bjergsen ever didn't win MVP because of troll voting. Doublelift has the crazy, because he's a shit talker even in scrims, he has the craziest haters among pros and coaches I have ever seen, Dom. I have seen them do troll votes like this. Like in that summer split where he was with TSM in season 6 you're talking about, people do shit, Dom, don't even give him a single vote. He's not even top 3. It's not that they go Bjergsen first, Doublelift second. So as a result, the actual argument there becomes, every time Bjergsen's second to Doublelift, he's second. Doublelift, they would do stuff like troll vote and put a bad ADC in, and players who were in his role were going oh, watch this, I'm going to fucking pretend the shit players in. Yeah. And they were actually sabotaging potential MVPs, and one of them famously, he was only a few points off, and this is one of the reasons he couldn't win.
This is the season 6 one, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I think my point there was more it wasn't about troll voting in general, because I think you were talking about in relation to Dyrus voting fucking wild.
I didn't mean that. No, I meant in this case, in these MVPs and all pros. I think the most trolled player in history is Doublelift, dude, because he's shit talked so many people. Essentially, all the ones who do the trolls, they always target Doublelift. Whereas here's the thing, because Bjergsen is the most respected player, they never did it to Bjergsen, as far as I know. There might be odd instances, obviously. I'm just saying, I think that's a point to make if you're going to just broadly say he has all the MVPs and the other guy doesn't. It's they're actively fucking this guy up. If you don't know, there's a reason why back in the day, in the NBA, they stopped letting players vote. That's why, because they also would vote on things like that. If they don't like you, they won't let you win the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take
your to make.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. I didn't look into a deep dive, and the MVPs were that was something I stated at the beginning of the video. I didn't go into it, and that's why even I'm willing to concede an MVP here, say you know what. So yeah, I mean, I believe you. And
I had a quick one I want to ask, because you've already said he was the best player of the season. I agree, but in season 5, there's a time when they give Phoenix first team All Pro. So you just disagree with that vote? Yeah. Over Bjergsen. That's your dude. So go on then, put him on the fucking bonfire. Does he go on the bonfire? Does he get the first team All Pro? He did do that in Zero Play, whatever.
I mean, look, I think that Azir play did actually catapult him.
It probably did win him that as well, mate. I know.
I mean, it was partly that TSM was in 5th place and we were in 1st place at the end of the regular season. But I don't believe the win-loss is that far. I mean, I could look it up right now, but I believe that it was pretty close.
It probably was.
I thought Bjergsen was the better player, and I can tell you this: Phoenix thought Bjergsen was the better player at that period of time. We just thought that this guy was the best player in North America. That was our interpretation of his team. It just felt hard to beat the guy. I think that Bjergsen did a lot of things better than Phoenix that were not as obvious. And that was what made playing against TSM so hard. Bjergsen was just better at warding. He was better at warding. He was better at moving with his jungle. He was better at keeping buff timers, because you got to remember, this is a time where you needed to do that shit manually. You had to write your own buff timers. You had to write your own dragon timers, and he just had the timers. And I mean, he played well when it mattered. But yeah, I mean, for me, I thought Bjergsen should have been All Pro first team summer.
All right, wait there 1 second. You actually made a point at one point that I thought was really weird. Am I wrong in this? I'm obviously I've written a note down, so maybe I'm misinterpreting my own note here. But the note says this. In theory, this is what I was quoting you saying. You were saying that everyone on TSM except Bjergsen won player of the series at times and stuff like that. Right? And I think you were using it to show that Doublelift wasn't that good, because he wasn't winning the player of the series. The others were, and the rest of the team, right? Even not even just Bjergsen, Haunter would win one, Svenskeren would win one, right? You used that argument to say that Doublelift wasn't that good, right? But the problem with that is this, Dom. The obvious follow-up is
then Bjergsen is not.
Then Bjergsen isn't that good. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In those cases.
Yeah.
And spoiler, I think those are probably mainly media narratives too. He's probably still Bjergsen was the best.
Yeah, I mean,
if we'll be real.
Yep. I take that point. I think.
And then also,
that's a good point.
I mean, we've already covered it now, but I said it earlier. But when it goes, let's be real. I've already said it earlier. By default, the mid lane should be the GOAT of any region. It shouldn't be any other player. If it was, I'd actually question the mid lane pool in any region. Then there's one thing I'd just say, which is when you count all pros, Well, the problem there again is there's a second player who I think's been trolled against. Maybe I'll do a video, Dom, separately. I'll look at the votes and see how many times they get trolled. I think Jensen's the most trolled player after that, mate. They also hate this guy because, spoiler, he is really arrogant and he's the person who definitely won't mind telling you he thinks you're shit, or even will just tell you in solo queue or in a scrim. So as a result, I think he's been trolled. So the problem with that one is this. I think not only was Doublelift worked against, I think Bjergsen probably even got not even just the troll votes. I think they automatically would put Bjergsen over Jensen just to go, fuck you, Jensen. It doesn't matter how good Jensen is. That's why he got one split ever at the number one. So just saying, I think that skews the all-pro to Jensen a bit.
Did he really get only one?
It was only season summer, as far as I know. It might have been recent years. Let me check it. I think it was only one. He probably did in season 9 or something. Yeah, let me have a look. You might be right, actually. I'm thinking of the early years when he was in Cloud9, though. In Cloud9, they only got it for that season 7 one. If I had to guess, he probably got it
the one where Bjergsen won MVP, true.
He didn't get it in season 9 spring. Let's have a quick look. He probably did it in summer, I'm sure. Let me have a look in summer. Yeah, he gets it in summer on TL and season 9 summer. I doubt he would in the other seasons, though, right? I don't think he would have in season 10, would he? Surely he wasn't the best mid.
Season...
No, that's Niski. That's Niski on that one, because that was when C9 dominated. Then you go to summer. I think he might only have 2, dude. This is mental. Let me go and look. At Bjergsen's for summer.
He got all-pro first team summer 2018, which I don't think we've counted. 2018 summer, when he was on Cloud9.
Summer. Let's see.
This is when he doesn't even play the whole split somehow.
So he's got 3 ever. I mean, that's wild in itself because they were subbing him out. I know, that's just, I don't even know what the fuck they're doing with that, mate. That one was just silly. Anyway, right, let me think. I think there's let me think, is there anything else? Let me see.
2020, no, I don't know.
Right, I've got 2 more points to make.
Sure.
This is where I should really write more notes because I can't remember what one of these points means. Oh, here it goes. It just says Namei versus Uzi 2013 to 2014.
Yeah, I know
what the point means. That point is this, right? Which goes like this. Because the hype is that Uzi was the best, right? A lot of people don't know this. Namei was actually way better than Uzi in those 2 years, even though Uzi was in Worlds Finals. Because these were the years where in the LPL, Namei was just a better player. And in fact, a lot of people don't know this. Uzi was like a Doublelift. He used to just hit half the time, mate, and do some really crazy shit and be playing way too aggro. He used to do some Jackie Love shit. I think that's where Jackie Love got it from, mate. That was one of those ones where I'm just saying it can be the case that without the championships, you even had the championships here. Sometimes the public is just completely wrong on the angle on that one. You can be the actual better player. I had a quick question on the Zilean one, then we'll wrap it. This is it, actually. This is the last point. When you do the Zilean angle, I have a problem like this, right? Which is, why does Zilean factor into this discussion? Because remember, go back to the beginning. We'll take it to the axiom number 1. We're both on the same page here, mates. If you're the one who carries, you're the one who is the best player in that game. That's why, if you notice, I'm the very unusual person who doesn't think Impact probably can be the greatest LCS top laner because he didn't carry enough. The team wasn't set up to carry. By definition, he lets other people carry. Now, he might be the most longevity, he might have the best results, might be the best player if you have the other players, but you know what I mean? As a raw top laner, you can probably get other people. Broken didn't play long enough, but there'll be other people who'd be in the convo if they played long enough. Year on year, that's probably what wins in the longevity. So the angle is this. The reason why I don't think the Zilean angle works for me is this, right?
For a 2020 summer?
It's just not a carry champion, is it? You actually pick that sometimes because you don't want to carry. So more importantly, to make other people carry. It's not like he's just using the revive on himself and he's not doing what you said with Lulu earlier and shitting on them. He's actually just making the team win, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think that the way that the champion functions, is that through the hardest parts of the champion's kit or the champion's game, which is the early game, he's actually winning all these lanes against these top tier mids in season 10 summer. So he's beating Niski. Niski's picking Lucian with Ignite, and Bjergsen's playing Zilean, and he's somehow even in CS. And he's winning all these lanes. So I feel it's not like he's he's ulting people and he's reviving people, but I feel like he is doing the most work in the game. For me, it's like when Impact did play the Scion and he's taking over a series playing Scion. I don't care what champion you play. Maybe this is my own fucking bias because I played a lot of Nunu in series. I feel like whoever is actively doing the most is the one that carried the game, even if you're not a literal carry.
I compare that to like a real Doublelift carry ADC performance where he like smashes CS, gets all the kills, has a get fucking triple kill in the key moment. That would be a better carry game than a Zillion mid game, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, just saying. I just want to put that because I think that's the problem.
But those games don't really like exist that much in playoffs in the key moments.
Oh, I'm with you. Yeah. I actually think, by the way, I agree with you. I think Doublelift had a slightly overrated career. It's true. What do you want? And then the final point, we already discussed it, is basically like none of these players GM their teams, and even if they do, it's the fault of their team for letting them. Like I always say this: a player just plays. He plays his position. He does the best he can. We try to judge based on expectations of how good his teammates are. If he did a good job, obviously we give that's the reason why we give people like Forgiven way more credit with no titles. But then we do take players like sometimes Reckless and don't give them the. There's a reason nobody calls Reckless the Western GOAT. Have you noticed that?
Yep.
Essentially, I won on that one. You do, whereas I got the W there. Because every single metric of a resume says he's the Western GOAT, dude. As in terms of like, look how many seasons, how many things. You could do the same thing. Is he ever worse than second best ADC? No, but like the point is, again, we're talking about were you the real carry? How did you win? What was the set of the game? So I'm just saying that's the reason why, in my opinion, you've got to do all these factors. So let's never do the whole, this teammate, but he wanted him, but he said this. Like that's all just by the by.
I mean, I think that's literally better for Bjergsen because then like the most damning one is the Mike Young one where he's like, give me Mike Young, and then Mike Young becomes dog shit and ruins Mithy, and then Mithy's playing bad and Mike Young's playing bad. It's better if we just pretend that didn't happen. It's like Bjergsen's just playing the game.
Bjergsen's playing great, yeah.
His support in his jungle, keep on fucking running it down. What can he do?
That's the joke. At the end of this, we actually made a better argument for Bjergsen, mate.